All right, guys. Hey, how's it going? Hope you're all doing well. This is Mike. You're watching All Things Fish, and thanks for tuning in. Looks like the video's okay. Audio seems to be okay. I've been, hanging out and bouncing around some of the different streams tonight. We talked to Dennis over at Bigfoot for a little bit. Jumped in and out of Terry's tropical tank. Stopped over, said hi to Bentley, and said hi to Catfish Terry. I'm sure there are a bunch of folks over there. So I wanted to say thank you for taking the time to stop over and hang out with me on time-ish. Pretty close tonight. A couple minutes late. And I apologize, but that's okay. Clicking in the audio. Let me see. Hold on. I can fix this here quick. Let's see if this helps a little bit. Is that any better? Some static. I can switch mics if we're getting the static. Hold on. How about now? Still audio. I think we might have fixed it. Maybe. Okay. All right. Is this better? Does this sound a little bit better? I sound like I've got a cold, but we're better. All right. We're back. All right. How's it going? So, Patty is here. Thanks, Patty. I'm glad you're around. S, hello. Roundhouse, what is up? Andre, how's it going, Andre? Thanks for stopping by. I don't know if you've stopped by before, so welcome to the family. This is All Things Fish. My name's Mike, and thank you for tuning in. Dee Dee's around. Hello, Dee Dee. Patrick's in the house. Muppet. Canasteo Valley Cichlids. What's up, Lori? Hey, Lori. How are you tonight? Thanks for stopping by. Sometimes we get Lori, and we appreciate her. Alishan, howdy, howdy. Collaboration of Curiosities. Hello, good evening. 1950s military headset has static. Who would have guessed? Not necessarily 1950s. I do have a headset that I usually fly with. I don't have the appropriate connections to make that work with my computer. We probably get pretty good audio out of that, though. It would probably be a little bit better. Maybe one day we'll try it. Patty says I should have stayed on Terry's. Why? So he could mute me whenever he wanted? Jenny. Hello. Speaking of Terry, did he find his way over here yet? John Oliver's in the house. John Oliver's Guppies and Aquatics. Always a pleasure, man. So if you don't follow John Oliver,
Check him out on YouTube over here. He posts some pretty sweet content. Eh, in case you couldn't guess, largely guppy related. He does have quite a few things. I'm a mod here. It's kind of not fair. And I also have a brain and teeth. What does that even mean? Da, 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 da. All right. Anyway, so we got a few people I'm waiting on. I was hoping for Terry from Terry's Tropical Tanks would find his way in here before we started yakking. But if not, that's okay. People have lives. I get it. Not a big deal. I'll drop this in here for now. Yes, as you can see, I'm StreamYarding it up for now. I tend to try some different software, but just haven't got there yet. It's summer, so streaming YouTube, you guys, sorry, aren't really a priority. Patty says, start talking about your plants. We're not going to talk about plants right away. We'll get there. Lori's dropping John Oliver's links. Thanks a ton, Lori. Monster Fish Gal, in case you didn't know, is Lori, and I'll help her out. She always plugs everybody else. So go check out Lori, Monster Fish Gal, if you haven't already. Let's see, she's been posting quite a bit of stuff lately. Stand by one. Stop this for just a second. Got all sorts of nonsense going on over here. We'll fix that. Bruiser's a new subscriber to the channel. Thanks for signing up, Bruiser. I appreciate it. We'll bring you guys back. Boom. And it's good to see you too, John. Thanks for hanging out. Thanks for plugging my channel every now and then. I do appreciate it. And
John.
we found a guy. Have you, Terry? Are you paying attention?
Oh crap, man! I gotta plug my headphones back in, man.
Oh.
Wait a minute. I don't want to echo everybody to death.
It's not work, Patrick.
God, I hope that's better. What's going on, man?
You sound good on my end. How are you doing? How you doing? I know you've been struggling with that tank that we're looking at right now. But outside of that, how have things been going?
Oh, freaking fantastic. Fish room wise, everything's great. Everything's doing what I want it to do. So it's all good.
Good.
I've been keeping my lights on a little too long though. So
well, I have that. I'll go down like into the fish room, or I'll mess with the tank like after hours, like outside of the lighting period. And I have a terrible habit of turning the timer to on instead of like on auto. And then it stays on for like, I don't know, days, just like days. And then I'll go down. I'm like, huh, weird. I have hair algae everywhere.
Yeah, gee, I wonder why.
Imagine that.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I honestly need to put the timer back on my system and just leave it.
Oh, I hear you. I hear you. And I need to keep thinking about going with some of the Wi-Fi timers. I just haven't made the switch over. So
well, the way I wired my fish room, everything runs through a single receptacle. So all I need is a 20 amp timer, and it turns all my lights are on or all my lights are off.
Yeah.
I mean, I can individually go and turn lights off, but I can't individually just turn them on.
Okay.
If that made any sense.
Yeah.
They're either on or they're off. So all the lights come on at once. So if I want to isolate a certain set of tanks or something, then I have to go and physically go up to the light and pull the chain and turn it off. And
Right.
which I do have the ability to do. Despite what the internet might think, I can pull a chain.
Can you yank some
I don't
chains?
even need a banana to make me do it. I can pull a chain.
So I'm just getting this new room set up. I need to get some lights for it. I'm just gonna go with the linkable, the cheap Amazon LEDs from China. I think it's just to see fish, and they'll grow some of the basic plants just fine, and they're cheap. So
I went through. I think I paid $5 a piece for most of the lights that run my fish room.
that's pretty good. And are you running LEDs, or are they still like T?
Yeah, they're LEDs.
Yeah,
they're not as blue. They're kind of in the yellowish spectrum, which I wouldn't have wanted, but they're bright enough to where the root feeding plants like swords, cribs, lilies, things like that, I can grow just fine. I struggle with the stem plants. Ludwigia is one I struggle with for some reason.
yeah. So anyway, aside from Terry over here yanking on people's chains,
I can yank on a chain. Trust me.
Tonight I'm repping our good friend Jeff Rose Fish Keeping.
Oh, dude, I love that guy.
So he's not far from me. In fact, this summer we're talking about setting up a camping trip. He's maybe 2.5 hours away or so. And unfortunately, he hasn't been. I mean, it's summer, and I think he's setting up the new fish room, and he's busy with Danny, and so they've been fairly busy. So I haven't seen them stream too much. This spring they were streaming every Saturday for a while, and those were some fun streams. You want a good laugh? That's a pretty decent little time.
First of all, I am the first person when I met Jeffro. It was before he started his food versus fish thing.
Okay.
And I told him, I took one look at him, and I like horror movies. I'm a horror movie kind of guy. And
okay.
I took one look at him, and I was like, dude, you'll make an excellent Captain Spaulding. And if you know Jeffro, he's the nicest. He's not a horror movie fan. He's just the nicest freaking guy on the planet. So he didn't know who Captain Spaulding was.
Right.
But I kept on him and saying, dude, if you ever go to a costume party, whatever, you got to go as Captain Spaulding. So he finally looked it up, and we got a big laugh on it online. But he really did do it. He went to a costume party as Captain Spaulding. And he told me later, he goes, Terry, that was the most excellent thing ever. He goes, I'd never gotten so many compliments in my life.
Really?
Yeah, he is the perfect Captain Spaulding.
That's funny.
I don't know how many of you have seen House of 1,000 Corpses, but trust me, he makes a perfect Captain Spaulding. But he's also the nicest guy on the planet. I mean, he really is.
So I've talked to him here and there, and I've sent him some plants and stuff. I haven't met him in person yet. He does, I mean, the past year or so, because of crap that's been going on, there haven't been a lot of swap meets and stuff, even out here in the Midwest, where we, for the most part, do whatever we want. So yeah, I haven't had a chance to hang out with him in person yet, but seems like a super good dude. Every time I've talked to him and chatted and sent him some plants, and he appreciated those.
He is that guy's got a heart of gold. The whole time he was hanging out with us, it was genuine. That's why I loved watching him, because it was an honest to God, genuine stream. And I used to just like him. We just watch him doing water changes, and then try to distract his attention while a tank was, filling up,
Yeah.
And he's got his laugh you can tell his laugh is true-hearted, man. He did it just to hang out with us.
Yeah, that's awesome. Good deal. I can't wait to start hanging out with people again. I just went to the first meet that I've been to in a while. About a month ago, they're down in Omaha. There's the Nebraska Aquarium Society held a swap meet, so that was a pretty good time. I actually met a few faces that are names that I recognized from YouTube. Got to see them in person. Picked up a couple new fish, nothing too crazy. That's where I got those blue bolt shrimp. If you were in Terry's Tropical
I
Tanks
did. I
stream
saw
earlier, you got to see those blue bolt shrimp that I got, and those are doing well. One of those is buried, so that's pretty cool. So should, ideally have about another 20 of those here in just a couple of weeks, which would be cool. So, I mean, anybody, and this is off topic of what we've been talking about or where we're going somewhat, but, people, it's sometimes sticker shock is a big factor in your decision as to whether you're going to buy a fish or not. But if you plan on buying a fish with any intent to breed it at all, if you consider, hypothetically speaking, we'll say you spend $100 on a trio of whatever the hot flavor of Bristlenose Plecostomus is right now. So you see, $100 is pretty steep. That's $33.33 a fish for a Bristlenose. I mean, that's kind of a lot, but you figure if you get 30 fry out of that, and 30 is an average to slightly below average batch of Bristlenose, and you sell each of those at an inch for $5, I mean, you're making most of your money back already, if not making money. So don't let sticker shock hold you back from buying that cool new fish that you think you want, especially if you want to breed it, because you'll make your money back in one spawn, undoubtedly. Usually, and unless, I would say, I mean, obviously there's some exceptions, like the fish that are super cool but nobody actually wants to buy because they're afraid they'll kill them. So if you look at like the chameleon whiptails, I can't even think of the scientific app, Thanos something or other.
I think I know the ones you're talking about.
Thanos, the pseudo Hemiodon apathanos, which kind of just became popular not too long ago. I'll see if I can share just so people can see what I'm talking about. These guys. So it's the chameleon whiptail. Super awesome fish. And for a while, to initially get them, they first kind of popped up in the hobby mainstream-ish a few years ago. And it was, $150, $200, $300, $200 and $300 a fish. And people bought them and they started to spawn them. And the issue was they couldn't sell the fry for anything close to what they were worth, is because people were afraid they'd kill them. Not very many people knew how to keep them.
Exactly.
So I knew somebody over in Iowa that spent buku bucks, and he spawned them, and they're super awesome fish, but he can't get rid of them unless he gives them away and definitely eats it in the shorts. So that'll happen.
It's going to happen a lot more than you think.
Oh yeah.
See, that's the problem with having very expensive fish. 90% of the hobby, unless you're really geeking out on that fish, is not going to spend that kind of money.
Right.
So when you design your breeding model, you kind of have to keep that in mind. Not to mention when you have the hot breed of the day, whatever it is, whether it's a guppy or a pleco or a certain barb, whatever the popular fish is at the time, you got to remember it's not going to stay popular. Right.
Yeah.
And once you saturate your market's saturated. You're done.
Mm-hmm. So Alishan mentioned, somebody asked if the apathanos was the fish that buries it themselves. I think S asked that.
They do. Absolutely.
And that's a yes. And actually, Alishan mentioned, so if you look at this, this is a male, and it's the spawning behaviors of this fish are probably some of the cooler ones I've seen in a while. But the male actually carries all these eggs with it basically under its face. Like I said, in the bristles here. So those are all eggs under it there.
Which is, I mean, if you think about it, it's very similar to Plecostomus type behavior. It's just they're not in a cave. They do it out in the open.
They're mobile, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
I would say my favorite spawning strategy of a fish that I haven't spawned yet, and I actually started acquiring things to do it, would be the Cynodonus. Is it the Lucipennis? The cats that actually spawn with the mouth brooders, and then the mouth brooders
it's not the Lucipennis. Lucipennis are cave spawners. Lucipennis and Petricola are both cave spawners.
Okay. Is it one of the Cynodonus species?
Yeah, it's the other Cynodonus that are what they call the cuckoo catfish, where they sneak in while the African cichlids are spawning. They kind of sneak in and lay their eggs, and the female picks up those eggs as well.
Yep. Multipunctatus, is that right?
Yeah, that's one of them. There's actually, I don't know, 5 or 6 different.
There's a few strands of them
that'll do that.
And there's some of the multipunctatus now that are kind of like the more uncommon ones that have similar white markings on them, if I'm not mistaken. But pretty cool. Like I said, spawning strategies are one of the things that I like to breed fish. Obviously, like keeping fish is cool to say, hey, I have this cool fish, look at it. But the spawning strategies in certain fish.
Well, and if you want to expand on that, I'm sorry, it's your stream, but
no.
If you want to expand on that, the Maltese, somebody asked in a stream not too long ago that I'd want to see a video of them swapping out the eggs. They don't swap out the eggs. They just rush in while the African cichlids are spawning. The male and female catfish will rush in and do their thing, and while the female African cichlid is picking up her eggs, she picks up the catfish as well. And the thing is the catfish hatch earlier.
Mm-hmm.
So while they're in that African cichlid's mouth, the catfish eggs hatch sooner, and they just simply eat the whether it's an mbuna or a peacock or whatever, but the cichlid, they eat the cichlid eggs first,
right,
while they're in the mouth of, I think this is the same video I saw. This is the Garudarai or oh no, this is multi. These are Maltese.
Yeah, but it says they're the Maltese.
Yeah, I watched one last night because of the person asked. And they just dart in while the other ones are spawning. And see, there's the female.
With the stripes coming in now?
No, well, not that one, but yeah, the silvery looking one is the female there.
Yep, right there.
And see, right now they're in the pit and they're doing their thing, and those catfish are right there too. And she'll eventually start picking up eggs, and she'll get some catfish eggs as well as her own eggs.
Okay. Yeah, I haven't spawned these before, like I said, but it's something that I'm starting to get a couple bigger tanks that'll probably be geared a little more towards like Rift Lake type Africans, and this is something I'd like to try just because it's super interesting to watch those behaviors, and definitely not a breeding strategy that you see all that often.
It happens quick, man. It really does. It happens so quick, it's not even funny, but eventually she winds up with a mouthful of, see right now she's got a mouthful of eggs, and some of them are catfish and some of them are hers, and the catfish are gonna become wigglers first, and then they're gonna eat the rest of her eggs.
Mm-hmm.
and then she's gonna spit out a bunch of catfish.
Surprise, surprise. So I said, so cool breeding behaviors, and that's one of the things. What's up, Jesse? Thanks for stopping by, man. Jesse's in the house. HC Aqua.
But the
What's up, brother?
Petricola and the Lucipinus, they're just cave spawners. You
Right,
can spawn them without. You can just spawn them on their own.
Okay. So these guys are the ones that I want to make this magic happen. So that'd be pretty neat. I don't think they're terribly priced either. I see them on Aquabit all the time. At least I feel like I do. And I know all kinds of people that keep them.
Well, you can actually cave spawn those as well. If they never get an opportunity to do it with the other cichlids, they'll cave spawn on their own as well.
Okay, awesome. Now, is that something you've bred, or you just? I mean, obviously you have a little more experience with.
I've done the Petricola and the Lucipinus. I've never done the multi. God, I can't say the word multis. Whatever, the multis.
Okay.
I've never spawned them because I never kept them. I didn't have a reason. I had the Petricola and the Lucipinus.
Now, I don't know, while we're talking different breeding stuff, I don't know if you're familiar with any of the gobies at all, but a friend of mine has, let me see if I can find a decent picture here. Rhinogobius Sui? I don't know how you pronounce it. These guys. And how he spawns these guys. So it's a small goby. They're one of the few gobies that'll actually successfully spawn in complete freshwater. And you'll actually be able to raise them, because a lot of the gobies, they travel from like a brackish type environment upstream to freshwater, and then you go through like the whole like larval type stage, as far as I know. But he breeds the Zhao's vermilion goby, the Rhinogobius Zhao whatever. And how he does it is he takes a plastic bottle cap from like a juice jug or a Gatorade bottle, and he places that down in the sand, so down, so the open space is under it, and he just tilts it up just a touch, and the male will burrow under there, trap the female inside, she'll lay the eggs, he'll kick her out, and he just hangs out down inside that flat bottle cap, kind of simulating like this flat rock that this one's perched up on.
Wow, that's so cool.
So pretty neat, and it displays that color in the picture. Like a lot of times you're like, oh, I'll never, like the pictures like we were talking about earlier, about some fish that had, I think we were talking about the Nigropenis earlier. In the pictures they look super awesome, but you get that fish in person, you never see the colors.
Right.
These gobies actually look pretty slick like this most of the time.
Yeah, this is way outside my wheelhouse, man. I'm just learning. I'm just learning right now, man.
Yeah. So pretty awesome stuff. But speaking of spawning fish, not that we necessarily need to stay on the topic of the live stream, but the live stream topic, as it's seen in the title, is changing seasons. And we're kind of right now, we're in between, depending on where you live. The transition from winter to spring's definitely here, and we're moving into summer. And as such, a lot of people are probably noticing that their fish are either stopping spawning or just starting to spawn.
Yeah.
And this has a lot to do. There's a lot of variables to it with the weather and whatnot. And if you look at, like the Amazon and some of its tributaries, so in the summer and the fall, water levels drop, things dry up. A lot of the smaller streams and stuff that are sometimes found with water in them are dried up. As the water recedes into the larger bodies and things get dry, you move through the winter into the spring, and in the spring you get it's like the snow melt up in the mountains is one factor. And then you get the spring rains, of course, and those cause a lot of changes, both in water chemistry and the fauna itself that's in the water. So as so as you get your spring rains and some of that snow melts off and water levels rise, and you start to see these inundated forest floors. To steal a quote from, if any of you follow Scott Fellman over at Tannin Aquatics, super good dude, talks about some really interesting stuff, depending on if that's what you're into. But it deals with a lot of like the Amazon stuff and some alternate substrate types and leaf litter and black water tanks and the like. So these inundated forest floors, where these areas have been mostly dry, they've got a lot of those dried leaves, a lot of organic debris that's dried up and just kind of
It's
left
pure
laying around.
black water.
And you have rising water levels. Well, the rising water levels, obviously, so you're getting rain and you're getting the snow melt off. So water levels are not only rising, but they're also cooling down. So you have a big rush of clean, fresh water, and then the water's moving up into these shallow areas, and there's an explosion of microflora and microfauna as you things become submerged. You see a lot of little micro critters that start to reproduce, and as such, you have these fish that now have clean water, they have clear water, and there's an explosion of different food sources. Well, this triggers a lot of fish like the cories to spawn. The cories say, hey, I have cool water, it's spring, I have all this food to eat, it's plentiful, to not only sustain the adults, but it's pretty good conditions for fry, and they'll spawn. And this is how we often replicate. This cories are easy to trigger in an aquarium environment, because we can do this artificially pretty easy. Some cories are a little more difficult than others. You'll see some breeders where they slowly drop the water level of their tank down to maybe 50% or less. They'll raise the temperature up into the mid or even the high 80s with some species, and they won't do any water changes. They'll basically let the water parameters deteriorate. And then, after weeks, or even I've read some breeding logs where people have waited months like this. They smash the tank with up to like a 10 or more degree cold water change, which brings that water level back up. You get some highly oxygenated water, it cools it off, it gets really clean, and then they'll start feeding heavily. So they'll feed whether it's live or frozen bloodworms. Blackworms are great for cories, as well as obviously like baby brine shrimp and whatnot, but you're providing excellent water conditions. That cold water change that kind of signals the change in seasons and replicates that shift that we'd see in nature. And then you provide the food, and a lot of times that'll trigger the cories. Additionally, on a more simpler side, if you have a rain system moving in, whether so if you get like a cold front pushing in and a pressure change, that'll often get those cories in the mood. So you see a lot of cory breeders that do water changes as soon as there's a rainstorm pushing in, because like I said, between the pressure change, the clean cool water, that'll often set those guys off, and you'll see the spawns in multiple tanks, depending on, like I said, the species, etc. Patrick said it's summer in the southeast. Yeah, it's June here, which usually June's warmer for us right now. It's been, in the high the other day was below 50. Obviously, we're in Iowa, so we're quite a bit further north. But we're just finally starting to warm up this week. We hit the 80s for a change, which is definitely a nice change for us. It's been cool. It's been wet. So things are getting better for us.
Man, dude, that was the most awesome couple minutes of YouTube I've ever heard. That was awesome, dude. And the thing is you're exactly right. If you have a South American fish that you want to spawn, you just let the TDS creep up. Just, not necessarily do your water changes. Maybe even let the temperature creep up a little bit. And then, bam, hit them with that slightly colder, a little bit of mineral content, water change in there, and I guarantee you they'll start spawning in a heartbeat.
Oh, yeah,
what they do. I mean, that's what they're used to.
It's crazy. So a lot of people, I often, I truly believe that for a good chunk of people, they're running a heater in their tank when they don't need to be, and they are. I've seen arguments. Well, the temperature fluctuates in my house. It may fluctuate from the low 70s up to the low 80s throughout the day. Like, okay, uh, that that's natural, really. If you think about these fish, a lot of the times, the fish like we keep are often found in fairly shallow water where they may be in a large lake where the main body of that lake, the temperature stays, pretty consistently.
Yeah, but those little shallow areas,
These shallow areas still easily change 10 degrees to a day.
Yeah, that temperature is going to skyrocket and plummet depending on conditions. You're exactly right.
And so that's, a lot. I would say when it comes to a piece of equipment, heaters in general are probably the most susceptible to failure.
My goal, my honest to God goal in this fish room is to get rid of every heater. I just want rid of them all.
Yep. And I run a couple heaters for, I would say I run them temporarily. Like if I have cories, and I'm trying to trigger those cories, I'll put a heater in that tank and
just to heat them up so you can cool them down later.
To raise it up a little bit more than the rest of the room. And even the room itself, I try to heat the room. I'll fluctuate that temperature every few months. I'll bring it up a few degrees or drop it down a few degrees. And that replicates what we see in nature, even the large bodies of water. I mean, obviously, if you look at, okay, so a North American lake is going to be a little more dramatic than something you'd probably see in South America.
Yeah, the closer you get to the equator, the more stable your temperatures are going to be.
Right. But you're still seeing fluctuations. And I think,
right.
People shoot to keep, they want their tank dead set at 76 degrees 24/7 year round.
And if they get to 79, they freak.
Right. But I think, while some fish, due to, poor husbandry, are fairly sensitive to water changes and stuff like that, fish aren't these fragile creatures that we make them out to be. Just because we don't necessarily
100% agree.
Just because we don't necessarily understand why they die or why they do the things that they do in their tanks. Keep in mind, you're keeping it in a closed system, for one. It's a tiny glass box. So you're going to see a lot of weird things that wouldn't naturally happen as far as illness and whatnot go. But as far as temperature changes go, temperature changes are perfectly natural. And
yeah, the fish are used to it.
I was reading.
Here's one thing you didn't. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. But while we're on the subject of temperature, you got to remember temperature is also subject to depth, and these fish are commonly used to going above and below the thermocline on a regular basis. So people say, "Well, your fish can't take a temperature change." Trust me, they can, because if you've ever been in a lake that has stratified and found the thermocline, if you're swimming in it and you touch your toe below that thermocline and realize, oh, that water's 30 degrees colder, those fish move in and out of that thermocline all the time.
Oh yeah,
and they'll do it throughout the day.
Yeah, and I mean that's a lot of it. And I think, as hobbyists, we've come to, I mean, there's just this like common misconception that you need a steady temperature, and that doesn't accurately replicate seasonal change, let alone daily change that they see in the wild.
I 100% agree with you. Everybody's freaked out, like, oh my God, my temperature is 4 degrees above recommended. Trust me, your fish will be just fine.
Right. I've seen fish. A buddy of mine, even in a saltwater tank, he had some clownfish and his heater stuck on, and his tank got well above 100 degrees. I want to say it was like 105, between 105 and 110, and all his fish survived just fine.
It's common practice among angelfish breeders, because of some of the internal parasites that angelfish are kind of prone to, that we call it cooking your angels. And it's nothing for us like once a month to take your angels up to 96 degrees for 2 weeks and then drop them back down. And it will kill any internal protozoans they got. You know, you don't have to worry about medicating them. You just crank the heat up. There's not an internal protozoan parasite on the planet that can live past 92 degrees. So if you go up to 95 degrees for 2 weeks, I guarantee you your angelfish are protozoan free. And it's common practice among angelfish breeders, but nobody ever talks about it on YouTube.
Yeah,
but it takes specialized heaters. Your typical off-the-shelf heater is not going to take your tank that high.
No. And there's a quick question. Andre asked you, what is the thermocline exactly?
It's where warm water meets cold water and sunlight meets the depths of the dark, and he knows what it is. He's being a smart ass.
And that's okay. There may be, I don't know. There's probably about 20 or so people watching, so there may very well be people.
Thermocline will be if you have a water that doesn't have a lot of flow, you will get temperature stratification where you have your surface temps are 1/10, but there may not be, because it's it might get really hot. It might get into like what you were talking about. It'll get into the 90s. So below that, it'll be at a more comfortable temp, but there won't be a lot of oxygen there.
Right.
So the fish will move back and forth. They'll move up to the hot water that's got some oxygen, which is an oxymoron in a fish tank, because every time you talk about hot water, they say, oh, you got to increase your oxygen and all that stuff. But it's just the way a body of water can stratify. And there will be an honest-to-God line where there'll be an honest-to-God division between cold water and warm water.
And I know, Andre mentioned the thermocline and people that fish. A lot of times when you fish, especially for like lake trout, if you're up north or have a little bit deeper water,
they're below the
lake trout, they'll sit right below the thermocline.
I mean, right there.
Yeah, they'll find that line.
They'll be suspended so they can move up. They can move up into the warmer water, and then they can move back down into the colder. And fish do that, man. I'm telling you.
Yeah. So a lot of these people that think that their fish need a set temperature, or like obviously there's a range that fish will prefer. But anymore nowadays, fish have been in the hot. Most species that most fish keepers have, they've been domesticated more or less so long that they're used to whatever. Just like.
If you're comfortable in your house, chances are you can keep
fish are comfortable. Yeah.
You may not be able to spawn it. You might need special, conditions to spawn it, but to keep it alive and happy in a tank, if you're comfortable, they're probably comfortable too.
Right. And that's, like I said, the heater's the most susceptible piece of equipment to failure that will lead to fish death. If you ask me, your fish, like if your heater fails, it's going to cook them. And most tanks will struggle being hot.
Nobody cares. Nobody cares when the heater fails in the off position.
No, the problem is it doesn't fail that direction.
They just put their hand in and go, oh, it's cold in here.
Yeah.
When it fails on the on position, that's when problems happen.
So, Greg Gall asks where I'm from. I'm actually in South Dakota. We have 3 bodies of water here in South Dakota that have lake trout in it. But I've fished for lake trout up in the boundary waters of Minnesota as well. So up north-ish.
For me, we have lake trout in Lake Michigan.
Mm-hmm.
But anyways, my whole point was I agree with you 100%. This whole thing that we put, you Google any fish and it's going to say, well, it needs a temperature range of, and the temperature range might be 4 degrees. It's
yeah.
like, really, I guarantee you in the wild, that fish is seeing a greater temperature change than 4 degrees.
Oh yeah. It's like saying humans they'll die outside of 10 degrees.
Right. Yeah.
So
It's
like,
it's ridiculous.
so I mean, it's just, I don't know. It's just silly. As I said, the temperature fluctuations, and Scott Fellman from Tannin. I was listening to a podcast one day, and he was actually doing some reading on the changes in bacterial colonies and the different bacteria strains that you see in a body of water throughout the season, and how they change in relation to the temperature changes. Um, and he kind of proposed a theory that those temperature changes were healthy for the bacterial colony in the tank as well, sustaining that over time and making it a little more stable.
See, I 100% agree with that, and I've almost thought about doing a video about it. See, everybody thinks your aquarium is done by like 2 types of bacteria, and that's not true, man. There's tons and tons of different bacteria that work on your fish tank at any given time.
Mm-hmm.
And it does depend on temperature and hardness. You can have 2 separate tanks, and I guarantee you the dominant bacteria strain is going to be different than the tank right next to it.
Oh yeah.
And that Dr. Tim kind of started talking about it, and then he kept his mouth shut after that. But yeah, there's more than one types of bacteria that are in the process of a fish tank.
Andre said that his outdoor tubs swing from 65 to about 80 daily. And I mean, that gives you, if you look at a lot of the people that do put tubs outside, they see, extremely great success in
I'm
breeding
not
fish.
saying take a 65-degree fish in a bag and dump it into 80-degree water.
No.
That's not what we're saying. But as long as it happens gradually, yeah, it's perfectly fine. Happens all the time.
So you look at, if you want to look at bigger names like Rachel O'Leary, or, anybody like Andre that keeps tubs outside, they see really good success breeding fish outside because they have, they have those temperature fluctuations, and they do just fine. It's a tub outside is outside where you have less, temperature control than inside your house. So
and a heck of a lot more natural foods.
You see bigger swings. You're going to see, live foods and temperature changes. And live foods, like if you want to breed fish, and you're not feeding live foods, you're wrong.
I agree.
You're wrong. And this guy right here, Jesse, I was fortunate to see his stuff before he tore it down, and he had tubs and tanks. He lives in Hawaii, so it's a little bit different environment than here in the Midwest where we're at. But all these tubs and tanks full of guppies, and he had some rams and some apistos and some pretty, generally tougher fish to breed. And he was having great success with all the stuff outside in fluctuating temperatures, where they were experiencing all the seasonal changes, the daily changes, that a lot of people try to replicate in their tanks.
Yeah, they're experiencing honest to God nature.
Roundhouse mentioned, let's look at angelfish. Take down to 55 or 60, because that, like I said, the floods from you're getting.
I agree 100% with Roundhouse.
Yep.
If I had a stubborn pair of angelfish, the first thing I would do is let the TDS climb in the tank, and then I just give them a huge influx of cool water, and I guarantee you within 2 days they'd be laying eggs.
Yep, and that's a lot of your South American type fish. If you look at like your apistos, so I've had good luck, not so drastically, but some of the plecostomus that I've spawned, good luck. Just you let the water slowly deteriorate a little bit, and then you clean it up real quick and make it cool to simulate that rain or that runoff coming down out of the mountains, and boom. And then Roundhouse also said the best thing to do is pure cold water changes, not hot water at all.
Yeah, I agree.
If you're running tap water, that will also keep your TDS down. So if you've ever tested your TDS, the TDS out of your tap water with cold versus warm, your cold's probably cleaner because it doesn't have all those solids that sit in the bottom of your water heater. So
wow, I've never actually tested that.
So
I just tested it at the temperature I wanted to put it in.
Yeah.
Wow, that's an I'm gonna have to try that out, man.
So if you're not, and I mean, obviously, it probably depends on the age of your water heater and how well it's maintained, or your water supply in general. But so like my tap water here in Iowa is pretty crappy. Like TDS, like 450 to 500, depending on.
Wow, that is crappy.
It's
I was
rough.
Gonna say mine was crappy, and dude, that sucks.
So and I had an older water heater, and I'd see about a 100 TDS rise if I ran hot water versus just straight cold water.
Really?
And that's another thing. So I personally,
you should be breeding African cichlids all day long, man.
I know. That's why the Midwest Cichlid Association was so big for so long, because it's stupid easy. You add water, you add tap water.
Right, exactly, man.
So,
God, I thought mine was bad. Mine at I've never tested it, hot versus cold, but at the temperature I usually put it in a tank runs about 150.
Yeah. 150 is pretty good. I'd kill for 150.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
So, and that's another thing that people, whether they notice it or not, is something to be wary. We're talking about, the general overarching theme is, seasonal changes. And that's something that people don't necessarily see or notice with their water changes throughout the year. But even if whether you're on well water or you're on a municipal supply, your water will change over the years, or over the course of the year.
Through the year.
Yep. And as there's runoff, it depends on your city may take more or less water from like a lake or reservoir compared to where they normally take it from. You may see a rise in TDS, a fall in TDS. Look at Dragon Lair said his varies over the year from 30 to 290. Now that's a pretty crazy swing. That's going from really clean water to borderline, that kind of sucks, depending on what fish you're keeping. But and you'll also see, depending on where you're located, depending on where your city pulls the water from, if you live out in the Midwest where there's a lot of farms around, you'll see a decrease in water quality in the spring and into the summer, as all those farmers are fertilizing and a lot of that stuff runs off into the water supply. But 3G said, "What's up? How's it going, 3G? Thanks for stopping by." Greg Gall, hello. I saw you ask a couple questions up there. I didn't say hi to you though, so I figured I'd take a second quick and say hi. But yeah, 30 to 290, Patrick. That's pretty crazy for your source water,
for sure.
And there was a question posted in the local group by a gal that has some. I'm not a goldfish person by any means, but she has some like 300-gallon goldfish tanks with these badass sumps set up. And she's got some fancy, really nice goldfish in them. And she was asking, she's like, "Well, I'm doing these water changes. Why does my pH keep going up?" I was like, "Well, did you look at your source water? Like, we're getting into summer." And sure enough, it was the source water that she was using, the tap water that she had.
Sure. In the summer, people use water a heck of a lot more than they do in the winter. So water doesn't get a chance to sit for very long.
Yeah, and I use a lot of RO myself. So I'm starting out with single digits, and I'll remineralize to where I want a lot of the times.
I do because my water it's Lake Michigan water, so it's got plenty of minerals in it. I'll just, if I'm trying to do that soft water thing, I'll just mix it with my tap water to get it down to the TDS where I'm looking for. If I want a TDS of 50 or something like that, that's what I'll do.
And Roundhouse said he just tested his tap water. He said 567 cold, 1100 hot.
Wow.
So that gives you an idea of how many
How much
minerals
iron
are sitting
Yeah,
sitting
it's
in that water
rough.
heater.
Yeah, you might be thinking about buying a new water heater because you got a lot of rust sitting on the bottom of that thing.
There's a lot going on in there. So I mean, that's stuff to think about. So whether you know it or not, depending on what your source water, and people always ask questions about water quality. I'm like, well, did you check your source water? I don't care if it's nitrates, phosphates, TDS, whatever. Did you check your source water? Compare your source water to your tank water and see if it's your source water causing a shift in the tank. Like, well,
Right.
I have high nitrates in my tank. I've been doing water changes every 3 days and I can't get it down. I was like, well, what's your source water look like? Well,
right
my
out
source
of the
water
tap
says I have 40 ppm. I was like, well, there's problem number one. You're just putting
Right.
nitrates in the tank.
Yeah, you see that a lot with people with well waters. They'll be surprised how high their nitrates can get, just right out of the well.
Oh, it's crazy. So here's a guy that I haven't seen in my stream in a little while. Scott over at Third Coast Aquatics is a pretty good dude. In fact, in one of my earlier streams, we gave away some of his artwork, and I shared that link in the chat. But he recently finished this blue bolt shrimp, which I need a copy of
Why
in
does
my
he
room.
look like he's wearing sunglasses?
I don't know. It looks pretty sweet though.
It does, man.
That's a pretty cool piece, and got a pretty cool little turtle there. And I do photography a little bit here and there. This painting stuff, I don't know how people do this painting thing. Like, that is just beyond my skill level by far.
All right, one of these days, you and I need to do a stream, and we'll just compare photos because
Okay.
I've been known to take a picture now and then again myself.
Yeah. So,
I
but
think that would make a good stream. I think
that'd be fun. That's Scott over at Third Coast Aquatics. Go check his stuff out. Check him out on YouTube if you'd like. I think he posts some content sometimes. I haven't checked out his channel in a while. But yeah, I think that would be cool. Are you familiar with, speaking of photography, Tyler Termini?
no, I'm sorry, I'm not.
Let me see. He's more so on the saltwater side.
I don't. I am a internet pariah, or I don't know, not pariah, hermit.
Yeah.
I don't seek people out. I kind of stay in my own little cave, and I'm like, nobody notice me, please.
Yeah. I don't know if it doesn't look like he has a bunch of his stuff online, but he has some awesome saltwater photography. Maybe
Oh, and that's so hard, man. You got to start getting into the orange filters and stuff like that.
So,
it's so hard to take good pictures of saltwater stuff.
Salt's tough, especially with the lights that most people run.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean. You got to start getting into orange filters and stuff like that.
He's got some pretty cool freshwater stuff on his site even. Let me see. It's freshwater stuff. Let's see what's over here.
No, I saw that Mandarin Goby.
But pretty good stuff. He shoots a lot of concerts and stuff anymore.
That's you know what? That poor fish. I feel so sorry for this fish because that particular fish takes specialized foods.
Oh yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame.
It takes somebody that knows what they're doing to grow those specialized foods, but yet they're so available in the hobby, and 90% of them starve to death.
Oh yeah, it's terrible. It's unfortunate. Like I said, there's several fish that are super easy to find in the hobby and really hard to properly care for.
Yeah, that's one of them right there.
Yep. a lot of the times, whether it's a size issue or special dietary needs, like something like this.
The funny thing is I'm not a newbie. I know what I'm doing, and I purposely will not buy that fish because I know I can't feed it.
Yeah, it's hard. I mean, unless you're specifically willing to buy, pods regularly, or you have one hell of a tank with a huge refugium or something crazy in the sump.
Or you're going to dedicate other tanks to have phytoplankton to go, to grow the copepods that the fish needs to survive on. You're just not going to be successful with it.
Yeah, it's
but then again, now we're entering an age where I think a few of them are captive bred and they're used to commercial foods and
that's one thing in the saltwater side that the saltwater people have finally, not that they stepped up their game, but based on whether it's export laws or collecting laws, like Hawaii recently banned the collection of a lot of fish. People are starting to breed more saltwater fish. There's several varieties of tangs and angelfish that have been captive bred, and that is awesome. That's super cool. There's always a place for wild fish in the hobby because that helps keep fresh blood coming in, but we need to, there's a sweet spot where we need to keep bringing fresh blood into the hobby, but we need to leave some there too.
No, absolutely.
And I've spawned, people have been spawning like your pajama cardinals, your Banggai cardinals forever, or your clownfish. Look at all the designer breeds of clownfish that are out there, and it's crazy.
It is, but does the average person doesn't know how much work went into it too?
No, I spawned
to breed a pajama cardinal. It takes a lot of work, man.
Yeah, and I've spawned clownfish. I had a pair of Ocularis clowns, and I spawned them, and I was able to raise some fry. But I cultured, rotifers. I cultured phyto. I bought pods, and you get it, and then you got to have all sorts of separate tanks to raise them up through, and it's a chore. Like, if you look at those people,
part of me almost wants to go, look, why don't you do it like, because rainbow fish have notoriously small fry. And on the freshwater side of things, you can do one of two things. You can either bring the soup to the fish. Yeah, and by soup, I mean like what we're talking
like green
about.
Water or something.
The green water. Or you can just put them in the soup and let them live. I kind of wish we could figure out something on the saltwater side where everybody's doing everything separate. Just throw the mix, throw the soup into a pot, let it grow for a little bit, and throw the fry in and see what happens.
Right. So, I mean, rainbows are, like I said, I was talking earlier about the Chilathrian Alani. They're my 125, and they're spawning away in there. But when I had them in, I had a group of about 12 and a 40 breeder with a couple mops. It wasn't uncommon to pull a mop with 60 or 70 eggs after 2 days. I'm like, it takes a lot of green water and a lot of baby brine.
Yeah, that's the whole reason I don't breed rainbows is number one, they're crap ton hard to feed when they're first free swimming. And number two, they take forever to grow.
Slow as growers. And you're never, so the amount of, I don't breed, I breed fish for fun. I sell them to recuperate a couple bucks so I can buy something new and try to breed that and share that in the hobby, right?
Yeah, but the expense, when it comes to rainbows, the expense you have in them by the time you get to sell them is enormous.
Oh yeah, and most people don't see just the food and water cost to keep a fit, because I mean, let's face it, for most rainbows, it's going to take 3 to 6 months. It's not like a guppy where you can sell a guppy.
Right, exactly.
Like you got 6 months worth of food and water changes and all the labor that goes into it to get a fish to about an inch to a sellable size, and then
then it's just gray.
You present it, and you're like, "Here's
then it's just gray."
Right. Here's this gray fish that I want $10 for. No, I need $10 just to even come close to breaking even.
That's too funny, man. That's the whole reason I don't breed rainbow fish. You just named it right there. It's the whole reason I don't breed rainbows.
Yeah, and then like Roundhouse said, it's a niche market. Like, I mean, it's unfortunate because rainbows are honestly
they're very spectacular fish once they grow up. But
they're my
who's going to
favorite type
spend
of
3
fish
years?
right now. Yeah, but there's the number of people that want those rainbow fish. It's growing, like it's slowly growing. Like I've been able to introduce people to a lot of the pseudomugils gills that I've bred, like the Illuminatus or the Gertrude. And you know, they're like, oh wow, this is awesome, I've never seen these fish, thanks for showing me these. Like, but it's still like, you know, 1 out of 20 people's even halfway interested in it.
Right.
And then
I completely feel your pain, man.
And I'm not crapping on Dan or anything, because Dan from Dan's Fish has brought in some really awesome rainbow fish. But a lot of them, I mean, you're looking at $20, $25, $30 a fish, because they're, you know, they'll be breeder size soon. They're coming from a place that's probably either wild caught them, or if they bred them, they've been sitting on them forever. And so for that reason, they're out of a lot of people's price range.
Yeah.
So, and Jesse hit the nail on the head right here. Like, I mean, first, breeding guppies, the genetics are intense. Like, if you've ever looked into guppy genetics, it's mind-boggling. And the folks like Alan Bias that have, you know, all the brains about the good guppy genetics are way smarter than I'll ever be. But if you want to breed a fish for profit, breed guppies, and use that money to fund everything else that you want to breed for fun. I mean, not that guppies aren't fun to breed. Creating a line and getting a line set and working with different color variants and different genetics is awesome if that's what you're into. But if you're just looking to sell something easy, I mean, everybody and their brother will buy a guppy.
Number one, I'm a guppy prude, but the last guppies I sold them for $70 a trio.
Mm-hmm. And people are always in the market to buy guppies. It's like Patrick said, there's always people in the market to buy angelfish.
That was my number 2. And I guarantee you, that's my first advice. If you want to make money breeding for profit in a fish room, my first go-to is angelfish.
Mm-hmm.
You'll get way more. First of all, angelfish produce way more fry than any guppy ever made. Okay? You're going to get way more fry from angelfish. You just have to make sure you have, number one, quality beats anything. You have to have quality. If you don't have quality, people are not going to come to you. And number 2, just breed healthy fish. Make sure your fish are all healthy. They don't have any, you know, any issues, and you'll have no problem getting rid of them.
Mm-hmm. And then Casual Aquatics brought up a fair point. Like, if everybody's breeding guppies for profit, wouldn't that saturate the market?
Yeah, the problem is you've got different levels. You've got different levels of breeders, and you've got different levels of buyers.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're going to buy a show quality fish, it's going to cost you a whole ton of money, a whole bunch more than if you're just buying somebody's mutt guppies.
Mm-hmm.
It's a whole different. There's so many different levels of guppy buying.
Oh yeah, yep. And a buddy of mine actually just got their. I don't know if they're descendants of a Schubel line, but I don't know if they're close enough that you would still call them like one of Stan's lines. And he paid a pretty penny for them, but they're nice fish.
Exactly. I actually looked at a Stan Schubel line through Stephen Qualter last night.
Yeah.
I was looking at what Stephen Qualter had available because I'm thinking about buying a couple trios from Stephen, and the Stan Schubalt greens, that green line. I actually thought about buying a trio of. I'm
They're
still
beautiful.
not
They're beautiful
100%
fish.
sold on it, but yeah, they are. They're gorgeous fish.
And a lot of the guppy genes and a lot of the price in, the higher end guppies is, it's often stuff that you don't necessarily, like, most people wouldn't notice or you don't even see. Like, it's just it carries a certain gene. And I haven't looked into guppy genes enough to understand all of it, but there's a lot of things that people will breed into a line and it doesn't necessarily show, or it
Right.
doesn't show for several generations until you're able to draw that gene back out of it to express it.
Yeah, if you do enough back crosses to where that recessive gene comes out.
And
See,
that's, so I get everybody wants to make a buck. Guppies are easy enough to breed, and angelfish for that matter. Everybody wants to make a buck, and there's all these videos out there about breeding for profit this, breeding for profit that, how to make money breeding fish. And if you want to breed fish, that's great. But I do think, and I've said this even before YouTube breeding for profit videos were popular, if you want to breed fish, you need to do so responsibly. You need to be ready to cull fish. You need to start with quality genetics. Even if it's a mutt, have healthy mutts.
yeah,
Like, there's beautiful mutts out there, but have healthy fish and sell healthy fish, distribute healthy fish throughout the hobby. Don't distribute garbage.
dude, you're preaching to the choir.
That crap drives me nuts.
I've tried and tried to say it in so many different ways that if you're going to breed, you have a responsibility to the hobby to produce the best possible.
Right. And it
And
doesn't have to
it
be a
really
$70 trio.
irritates me when people put out, well, these are crap, so I'm going to put them out anyways. That bothers me.
Oh,
Your
yeah.
responsibility as a breeder to bring the hobby forward is to bring the best possible.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the way I'm going to be. That's the way I'm always going to breed. And you'll never, ever see me do a mutt angelfish tank or a mutt. These are my culls, but I'm going to sell them anyways for a cheaper price. That's not going to happen.
If they're culls, cull them.
Yeah, that's it. They're culls.
Cull them. Like,
it's it. They're done. They don't belong in any breeding program. I don't want to see them in any breeding program, and that's what's happened a lot in the African cichlid lines, where, well, I'm not 1,000% sure that this is actually a pure strain, but they look good, so I'm going to go ahead and sell them.
Oh yeah,
and the lines have gotten so polluted now. The angelfish lines have gotten so polluted. The guppy thing is an entirely different issue because of the influx of Asian fish. But yeah, it's an entirely different conversation. But if you're gonna breed, here's my advice: if you're gonna breed and you want to make money, breed the best fish possible. And if you can breed fish where people look at them and go, "Wow, those are incredible," you're gonna make money.
Oh yeah. And I was, there was a comment, without trying to get this going too back and forth with anybody and pissing people off. There were some people complaining the other day because there were people breeding in their sector of the hobby that were selling fish for less than what they wanted to sell the fish for, so they were bent out of shape about it. They thought that the other breeders were reducing their value, but that's a different line. But breeding fish,
I don't know. I see a point to that.
I'm on both sides of it. Both sides of it.
That one's one of those iffy kind of things where it depends. I mean, honest to God, if it's fish for fish, and you're not going to hold out for the higher price, then yeah, it could hurt me. But then again, I look at it in my fish room. If I'm going fish for fish, if you have them and I have them, then the market's saturated at that point. Then, my whole idea is if you're going to breed something where you want to make money, you got to have something that nobody else has.
And that's the trick.
Yeah, you want to have that. Now, it could be a trick of marketing, or I can't blame a person if they market better and they're willing to outsell me. I generally don't sell outside of my local pet shops and or the local fish swaps. So I'm not trying to market my stuff against anybody else.
Yeah.
So I've never been in that situation, but if I was in that situation and we were honestly going fish for fish and that guy went cheaper, at that point I would just stop breeding them and go, the market's saturated and I got to pick something else.
Right. And that's, we were talking on your stream earlier, we talked about Hemichromis exul, so the Turkana jewel cichlid, which is it's a beautiful fish. It kind of hit the hobby about a year ago, and if you weren't one of the first few people to breed it and sell it, you weren't going to make any money on it because they're just too prolific. Like, it's an awesome fish. Nothing against it. It's a great fish, but you had to buy it and be one of the first few people to breed it if you wanted to make money on it. And that's the way the hobby goes. Like if you look at
absolutely, that's absolutely how the hobby goes.
You got to be willing to there's a lot of imports coming out of the Czech Republic recently, and if you have ties to some of those people, they can get some of those harder to find African cichlids, and if you can get your hands on those and breed them, then you're
ahead of
the money.
Because you're ahead of the market.
Yep. It's tough. And like you said, it's all about saturation. And saturation could be local market saturation. Like if you're in Chicago, you have, the Greater Chicago Cichlid Association, and that's your market. That's who you compete against. If you're not willing to ship, if you bring in a fish and everybody in Chicago in the Greater Chicago area has it, then there's no room. There's no room left for you in that fish.
Now your fish is useless.
So, if you're one of the people that's willing to ship, well, you have a little bit bigger market, but you're also competing against some of the bigger distributors now. So, what's up, Aristotle 760? How you doing? We're just talking right now.
Doesn't necessarily mean just because your market's saturated, you can't go outside your market and sell for a cheaper price. It's just like you said, the rise and fall, supply and demand. It's no different than any other, commodity. If demand is high, you're golden. But if demand is low because the market's saturated, then you're obviously gonna sell them for a lot less price. But that doesn't mean people still don't want them.
Right.
It just means you're gonna have to sell them for a lot cheaper price.
Yeah. And I personally haven't been contacted, but I have some good friends have been contacted by people that do sell in larger quantities online. They're willing to ship, or they'll take your stuff to swaps, or they'll take it to, it's like they're not necessarily distributors, but they'll buy your stuff in bulk and resell it.
Yeah,
is kind of what they're looking for. And that's one way for me personally. Like like I said, I don't breed fish to make money. I'll take what money I can get, obviously. But
I have a couple people exactly like what you're talking about, where I can say, well, I got 50, dime size or nickel size Filipino blue angels. Can you dump them? And he'll give me an incredibly low price, and then he'll go to a show and sell them and make a profit. But he's doing the work where I'm not.
And that's if I can bag up 50 fish as long as the price is reasonable and ship them to one guy instead of having to ship, 10 boxes of 5 fish a piece.
Right, exactly.
Like, here's my fish. Take them.
Yeah, take them.
Like I hate bagging fish. I really do.
Yeah, it sucks, man.
I
People think it's really cool, but it's not.
I sell a lot of plants, and I can pack plants in no time, and they ship well usually. Bagging fish is just a pain. Bagging fish sucks.
You have no idea what it's like to bag like 100 bags worth of fish before a swap meet.
Oh.
And you're doing it the night before, and then you get like an hour and a half sleep, and then you got to get up, load everything into the car, and then drive to the swap, unload the car onto a table, and then deal with the whole swap. And you're like on no sleep whatsoever.
And then guess what? When they don't sell, you get to take them home.
Yeah, and then
you get to put them back in tanks.
And put them back where they were. It's like, son of a bitch.
So for a while, based on my location, the nearest swap meet was about 4 hours away. So going to a swap meet, even if it was just plants, involved, we'll say on the low side, 4 hours of prep work, and that includes bagging stuff, labeling stuff, etc. 4 hours to drive there. You spend, even if you only
here's
spend
the thing, when
4
you
hours
go
at
to
a
an
swap meet,
auction,
then you go 4 hours.
Here's the thing that people don't realize when you go to an auction as a seller. So let's say you got 50 bags. You want to sell 50 bags at an auction. All right. So the bags are going to be gone no matter what. But then they hand you 50 tags with numbers on them. You have to label all 50 of those bags.
Exactly. And you better not take 50 of the same thing. That's one of the...
Oh yeah, you can't do
depending
that.
on
You're only allowed. I think most of the auctions. You're only allowed like 10 to 20 of the same species.
Yeah, and that's one thing. Depending on the size of the event. So if you have, we'll use something stupid.
I'll be
simple
right
because
back. I gotta step away a minute.
Yeah. So we're talking about auctions. Like if you have, we'll use yellow labs because it happens all the time. Say you bring 3 bags of yellow labs and you have 6 juvies in each bag. Guess what? There's 5 other people that also brought yellow labs. So you'll be lucky to see, a couple bucks a bag at best for fish like that. And if you bring higher end fish, like you said, we'll say you bring, I don't know, you bring some L134s. So the market price right now is what, like 40 or 50 bucks a piece on them. You may bring them and you throw them in the auction and you either put a reserve on it or you don't, and they may sell for way above what they're worth, or they may sell for a lot less than what they're worth. So auctions are a lot of fun, but generally speaking, I'd say fish sell for a lot cheaper than what you can generally just buy them for. And they're a lot of work. If you're selling an auction, it can be a lot of work. And like Terry mentioned, labeling. I've got a system now where anything I take to a swap meet, whether it's an auction or I just set up a table to sell, but I'll print labels and stick them to the bag so I don't have to hand label bags. Jesse said he worked with a reseller. Yeah, I mean it's a lot easier. You don't have to do any of the legwork, and I think in the long run, the effort versus reward thing, you're making less money, but you're moving more fish easier, so it's a lot easier on you. I'd be inclined to go that route as long as a reasonable offer. Like if I'm selling a fish that's worth $10 and the reseller's like, well, I'll give you 10% whatever it's worth. Like, well, that's not quite going to do it. Like I'll take my chances, but it depends on who you're working with.
What did I miss?
We were just talking about auctions. When you stepped away, I talked about auctions. Like if say you bring 3 bags of yellow labs or whatever, well, you may hope to get $5 a bag for it until 10 other people each bring 10,
Well,
3
yeah,
bags of yellow
again,
labs.
now
And by-
we're back to the market saturation
Yeah.
thing.
By the end of the auction, people are paying $1 a bag, and you're hardly getting rid of it.
And not to mention, even if your bag of fish goes for $1 a bag, you don't get $1.
No, you're giving up. Generally, you're giving up $1
It's usually
at
a
least.
70-30. So yeah, you get 70 cents on that dollar. The club gets the other 30 cents.
In several of the auctions I've been involved in, the club takes $1 minimum. So
Really?
you may not.
So
even
then you just gave them away for free.
Yeah. So Jesse said he was working with a reseller that was doing 50-50. So that's not a bad deal if you're working with a reseller. If you're getting 50% of what they're selling it for, I'd say that's pretty good.
That's kind of generally kind of the deal I got with my local pet shop when I bring fish in. That I did with my Angelfish.
I would do that.
That's
especially if it's local. You don't have to ship fish or drag them anywhere.
Yeah,
hell yeah.
I just drove 3 miles and said, "Here's 100 angelfish, sell them."
Yeah,
and they gave me money.
Like, sure,
I'm cool with it.
And I would say anytime that you can, if you can work with a local shop.
Now I will say this though. Okay, just so how many people do we have here?
I don't know, 20 or so.
I'm fairly certain everybody here kind of knows how it works, but just in case you don't and you're a new, I was very professional about it. You know, here's your invoice, you know, and this is everything you're getting, you know, especially if you're going to go into your local fish shop new and you got fish, show them what you're about and show them you can be professional about it.
Oh, yeah.
You know, you can't just show up with a bucket of fish with like 5 different species in a bucket and go, here you go. You want these? Because they're just going to look at you and go, what the hell?
Go away.
Yeah, just
You're not
leave
worth my
now.
time. Yeah.
You know, they all got to be bagged up professionally. They all got to be, and they all got to be itemized because that pet shop actually has to, you know, keep track of that.
Oh yeah, it goes on.
They really do.
Their taxes and everything. So
right.
Patrick said in the 70s, if you brought 5 bags of the same thing, the first one was bid on, then anyone else who wanted them got a bag at that price. Yeah, that's how. Generally speaking, depends on who runs the auction. But I have a good friend that does auctions, you know, for a living on the side. So it's not his primary job, but he is a professional auctioneer. So he makes auctions a lot of fun, and that's about how he does it. If you got a few bags of the same thing all together, you get as many as you want for that price. So.
Now, see, here in Chicago, they don't do that. We run on like a 10-table system. So let's say I bring 50 bags. I'm going to get 5 tags of 10 different colors. Each table gets a color. So there's 10 colors. So I'll get 2 of each color. Okay. I'm allowed to put, I just take my bags and go, okay, I want this one, this color. And it's all a guess. It's a freaking lottery. You know, and I'll put this other bag with a different color and so on and so forth. So there's 10 tables. Then once all the sellers have put all their stuff on the table, then they have a drawing. Color pink is first. Because, see, that's what you want, you know.
Oh, yeah.
So the table pink is first. So whatever's on the pink table goes first in the auction. And then they draw, okay, whatever's purple is the next table. So you have 2 bags on each table. Okay. So some of your bags are going to be at the beginning of the auction. Some of your bags are going to be at the end of the auction. And we all know if you've ever been to an auction, the last table you can get shit dirt cheap. Oh, yeah. But see, this way, there might be some really good stuff on that last table.
Oh, yeah.
So
that's a pretty good system. I like that. I haven't been involved with one like that before.
That's the way the greater Cichlid Greater Chicago Cichlid Association runs it, as well as the Greenwater Aquarium Society runs it, is where they do that. You don't know what table's coming first.
Yeah.
You just bring in your bags and you tell them how many bags you have, and they'll give you the appropriate stickers and the whole thing, and away you go. And you're only allowed to, you can't lay all your bags on one table.
Right.
You have to spread them out,
Yeah.
so they have to have the appropriate colored sticker, and yeah, that's how they run it. And then you don't know what table's going first.
Mm-hmm. No, I have been involved in auctions that offer an option to inject your item at any time.
Right. If you're a member of a
premium.
club, you can pay money to get your item up sooner.
Yep.
But you're just giving away money.
Right. Yeah. So I'll have to. I'm not currently officially in any clubs, but I do work closely with some other clubs that are just a little too far outside of my local area to be directly involved with. I'll have to bring up the limited items like on the table, like you said. I think it's a fair system.
Right, because you had to spread everything you brought among all the tables that are there, and then they randomly pick what tables are going.
Yeah. So off topic, Alishan said they're getting some Tadia Musaica, and I think that's so Tadia is the wood cats. Musaica, is that the ninja wood cat?
That's outside my wheelhouse.
So Musaica is this guy, if I can get the picture to load. Pretty cool little fish. Sometime this summer, it might have been a GCACA talk. Was it somebody did a talk on woodcats? I can't remember who it was now, but that's this fish. That's Musaica. I think it's called the ninja woodcat.
There's a bunch of different ones. Definitely outside my wheelhouse.
Yep. God, I wish I could remember who gave the talk. Was it Jeremy Bainch? Not Bainch. What's his name? I can't remember it for the life of me. Catfish.
Now that's bullshit.
What's that?
Oh no, just I'm reading somebody else's comments.
Jeremy Bash talks about woodcats. So he's in Ohio now. I don't know if he's in Ohio anymore.
Alishan's AS, man. I'm glad I don't belong to his club.
I'll stop that. $1 a bag on all live goods. Rest goes to the seller. We give priority to.
If you pre-register, you get priority stickers.
It's interesting.
That's crap.
So 1/3 of your bags. So is there no limit on how many bags you bring? Most auctions definitely need to have a limit on the number of.
Oh God, yes. If you've been to a GCCA auction, man, them sons of good. You're there 5-6 hours easy.
Yeah, and those I've done swap meets where it'd be, a table type setup, so flea market deal for the first few hours, and then there was an auction at the end. And the auction itself was the main attraction, but the tables were set up so, like, if you wanted to pay the seller's asking price or whatever right up front, you could do that, or some people didn't want to deal with the auction, so they'd sell, and when the auction started, they'd pick up their stuff and go home. The problem was you'd get sellers that would bring 200 bags of guppies or African
all
cichlids,
the same guppies,
and it comes time for the auction, and they still have 150 bags on their table. So guess what? They walk over to the auction table, and they plop it down, and now you have all this crap to sell that nobody already wanted.
Right. We've been open this long already. If somebody wanted them, they would have bought them by now.
Yeah. So
that's what I like about in my local area. It's either a swap meet or it's an auction. It's one or the other.
That's the way to go. That's the way to go.
You can't do both.
Right. And I've seen auctions, some people we talked about prices in auctions, whether it's a buyer's market, seller's market. I have seen items on a table, we'll say a bag of whatever, doesn't matter. It'll be $10 on the table, I've seen it hit the auction and sell for 25.
Yeah.
Conversely, I've seen items that were $30 on a table get put in auction and sell for $4.
I have seen, honest to God, in an auction, I have seen a swordtail that you could buy at any local fish shop for $4 go for 20.
That's wild.
And it people get involved in that whole auction thing. You know, it's like, no, I want it. You know, and I've also seen extremely rare, beautiful fish go for dirt cheap.
Oh, pennies. It's insane.
So yeah, when you put your fish up for auction, man, it's a crapshoot.
Alishan said their auctions run 8 hours. No thanks. I'm good for about
Oh,
2.
most
3.
of ours they usually go 8 hours, and if you're willing to wait, that's the thing. Because a lot of people from the beginning to about the middle of the auction spend their wad.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you save
They have
some
no money
money, you'd be surprised what you can get for dirt cheap.
Oh, yeah.
Especially when they run where you can only put so many bags on a table. So that last table actually has some really good fish on it.
Yeah. So it's an adventure sometimes. And there's some auctions I'll leave for the first, like, I'll stay for the beginning, like the first hour, I'll leave for a couple hours and then come back. Like first hour, see what what the crowd's like, because you may have
Hey Skipper, what's
a
going
good
on,
crowd
man?
or a bad crowd. But 70s, one guy brought 50 bags of 6 convicts. I would have told him to turn around.
Yeah, go away.
home.
Just go away. Nobody
You
wants
are
them.
not welcome.
Well, the cool thing is with like the GCCA, they have a youth auction. So like the baby platies that some of you guys have seen, I'll put them in a bag and just donate them to the club and say, put this for the youth auction, where kids can bid and stuff like that. That's kind of what I do. With stuff like that. If I had convicts, which I don't, I'll never have a convict in my fish room. But if I did, that's what I would do with it. I'd give them to the youth auction, and let some young kid learn how to breed cichlids.
Yeah. So I technically sort of own convicts right now, ish. They're not real convicts. I mean,
they're the cool looking ones.
They're part of the same complex, but they're not real convicts.
Yeah, except, well, no, those yellow ones.
These guys.
Yeah, they're allowed. Okay, those are allowed to be cool convicts.
They're the only
convicts. There ain't a whole lot of people keeping them.
No, I mean, they're on the CARES list, so they actually mean a little something if you breed them. And,
right.
So now, at GCCA, how do you feel about BAP, and how do you guys have a system in place? How do you feel about that system? Because we're talking about
love it. I got my certificate for my Master Breeders Award through them. And I like it. You have to have 10 matching. You can't have 5 of one, and they have to be matching. And you donate them to the club, and you get points. And you have to write up a description on how you bred them.
Really?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I've seen some people's setups they have.
So if you want GCCA points for that fish, you're gonna have to write a small paper. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be a scientist. You just have to write up a description on how you bred them.
Right.
Then you give 10 of them to the club. The club, sells them, and you get the points appropriated to that species.
Mm-hmm.
Some species have less points than others.
Right.
That particular species, I'm not sure, because it belongs to a group of fish that you're not going to get a lot of points for. But it's rare. So, you know, because there's a board of directors for the BAP program, they might give you more just because, that's not your typical convict.
Right.
You know, because convict, you might get like 1 point for it, you know, for a standard convict. But because of the rarity of that fish, you'll probably get more points for.
Yeah. And is it a set amount of fry that needs to be donated? So like
10.
if I have
10 matching fry.
So if I have like, I mean, it's easy to get 10 guppies or 10 peacocks. But if you have like, if you raise say 10 046s, like you were looking at 10 zebras, it's a decent chunk of change. Is it the same requirement or?
Yeah, but I don't know anybody in their right mind that would donate that to any club.
You want the point,
there ain't no
right?
freaking way. You know what? You can take your breeder's points and shove them up your, you know what? I got $2,000 worth of fish here. I ain't giving them away.
See, now I've worked my way through like the HAP program for a couple different clubs. And I mean, it's the same part where like, if it's, you know, a Nacris, you get a point. If it's like a crypt or whatever, depending on the crypt, you get 5 points or a point system like that. And for the most part, it's pretty easy to work through them. I cycled through a couple times and then kind of I was like, all right, cool. I got a couple posters. That was fun. Next,
I'm gonna tell you what. When I got my certificate, I was actually kind of. Don't get me wrong. I'm proud of being a master breeder. However, I'm gonna tell you what right now. If you're in like an area like mine, we just trade fish back and forth.
Oh yeah.
We just trade breeding colonies of fish back and forth. You know, it's like, all right, I got points for this particular fish. You got points for that particular fish. So let's swap. And then I can get points for, you know, we're not doing anything spectacular. We're just breeding a bunch of fish.
Mm-hmm.
As many as we can breed as possible to get your certificate. And when I got my certificate, that I just got on that thing where I was like, man, I just want that certificate. And then once I got it, I was like, yeah, except I really didn't do a whole lot.
Right.
I just traded fish with people a whole bunch.
And that's one of the things, like, so, okay, so you need to turn in 6 fish. Okay, well, so we'll say, and you guys talked about trading fish, you can get your certificate. So if I import a group of, say, 10, you know, Calvis or whatever, something that takes a while to grow out.
Oh yeah, it takes
forever
to grow
out. So I import them, I pay the money or whatever, I breed them first, and then I sell or trade, you know, Joe Schmo over there, these fish. They're already spawning. He puts them in his tank. He gets some fry. He gets the same points for
exactly. He gets the exact same points as you do.
I just put 8 years worth. I mean, if you've ever grown out comps or Calvis, they're about like freaking rainbows.
Exactly. It ain't fair, dude. I'm not saying it's fair.
You got to do it for the love and how bad do you want a piece of paper.
Exactly. How bad do you want that piece of paper?
And if all you want is the paper and the, you know, the ego boost of saying that you're like there's people that are like, oh, I've been.
You know, the only time I ever say it is when we wind up on the subject. When we wind up on the BAP subject is the only time I ever say I got that certificate, because it means nothing. No, it really doesn't. Really. It means absolutely jack shit.
Right. So you have a you did the paperwork and you gave away fish, get,
I gave away a ton of fish.
to get a certificate to be a master breeder for your club.
Right.
That's great. I've got a friend that's bred over 300 species of killifish. He doesn't have a paper for it.
Right,
But
exactly.
he's bred over 300 species of fish. I
Exactly.
was like, come on, man. I'm like,
That piece of paper I got ain't worth the freaking ink it was printed on. It just meant I wanted to play a game with a club.
and I mean, as long as you had fun while you're doing it, that's great. That's awesome. But I mean, it has its ups and downs, and it has ways. There's people. So, I mean, HAP is a little bit easier. So the horticultural work program, where you're doing the same thing with plants, is a little bit easier because plants are generally way cheaper and take way less time. Like, I'm not impressed by people that are like, oh, I've received the master aquatic horticulturist 3-4 times over. I'm like, okay, so you've had a lot of plants. Okay.
Yeah,
Next.
exactly.
Like, I think that shows you how flawed the
system is.
system is.
Exactly.
And maybe it's time to update it. I think I'm frozen. I'll be right back. Uh-oh.
That's interesting, Dragon Lair. The first person in the club to bring a species got more points than the next person. But when I went through, they didn't have that because we were already in the age of shipping fish around the world, and there was people bringing in new fish. There were people breeding old fish, and the point system worked on basically the ability to grow the fry. And, if the fry got, like African cichlids, the fry got spit right out of the mouth, they're pretty much ready to go by the time the female spits them. So they're pretty low points. But the things that were extremely hard to feed, like some of the rainbows and white clouds, they got a couple little bit more points. And the thing is the reason I got mine is because all the African cichlids are all separate species. Even though they breed exactly the same, they're all separate species. So we would just trade species back and forth to get our points. And as sorry as I am to say it, that's how I got it.
I mean, that's all it takes, though.
We just kept trading species back and forth between. There was like 10 of us, and we just traded species constantly. Well, I bred this one, have you bred this one? And, we just flip-flop species. Although I will tell you, I did get breeder awards of points. I have bred the Sultan Pleco.
The 264s?
They're I forget their number now. 260.
I think it's
264. I thought it ended in 5, but yeah, it could be 264. The Sultan Pleco, the gray with the
black
white,
spots, yeah.
That one. I bred that one and got me a lot of points.
Yeah. So and
but it cost me a crap ton of money to buy the colony.
Oh yeah, it's gonna cost you up front for sure. Alishan made a joke about breeding stingrays that they're live bearers, so you get live bearer points for them.
Yeah, 5 points. Yeah, it's like a guppy, right?
So
I don't know if when I was into it, I don't know if anybody ever brought in a stingray. It would have been cool as hell if they did.
Oh yeah,
because I don't know how many points. How many points would you get to a stingray breeder?
I don't even know. I don't know if I've actually seen them on. I mean, I haven't looked at any of the BAP, guidelines or anything for clubs.
I don't know if
recently,
I've ever
but,
seen it on the BAP guidelines.
I mean, I don't know who would donate a stingray, to be honest.
Right? Yeah.
It's like,
Here you go. Here's my baby stingray for free.
right. Like, oh, all right then. That's interesting.
Here's your certificate.
That doesn't happen very often. As I say, like, do you just give them the certificate up front and say, congratulations?
Yeah, here you go.
You
Thanks
did
for
all,
donating to the club.
you did all the things? Like, I mean, that seems pretty crazy.
Yeah, I don't know anybody in their right mind that would want to give away 10 free stingrays.
No. Or how would you even get 10 stingrays?
Yeah, it'd be a...
I mean, I feel like that would be a chore in itself.
Man.
Patrick said he was breeding cockatoides in 1975, which is impressive.
If you were breeding anything in 1975, it's impressive.
Yeah.
Man, we had quite the hobby back then, man.
Those are different times.
The pet shops were really cool into the people that were breeding fish. They really were. They were a lot more willing to work with you. They were a lot more willing to sell your fish.
Oh, yeah.
Because it was a lot harder to get fish back then, man. You had to go through the local wholesaler, basically. It was about when whatever they had is what you were stuck with.
Yeah.
You know, so the local fish shop was way more happy to deal with local breeders than they were anything else.
Yeah. Now there's so many wholesalers that, I mean,
yeah, they're everywhere.
I don't even know if people want to deal with actual people anymore.
Yeah, that's where they're at now. The local your local mom and pop shop, if you don't come in very professional, you're a joke.
Right.
You know, don't even bother unless you can do it in a professional manner and say, look, this is what I got. Here's my invoice. You know, try to sell them. If they don't sell, then, you know, I won't bother you anymore. But if they do sell, here's my card. You know, I can bring you more.
Right.
You know, and you have to come in with at least a professional, you know, business and say, well, I can provide you this many over this period of time.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I mean, a lot of the times it's, you know, they kind of want some consistency. Like,
Exactly.
well, I can bring you 20 fish a month. Like, okay, can you how many months can you do this for before you're burned out or
Right.
you can't keep up anymore?
Exactly.
So,
you gotta, you know, if you had that, when I was breeding angelfish, it was so stressful because I had those commitments, you know. So if I lost it, let's say I lost a batch while they were wigglers for whatever reason, a poor water change, or, you know, I fucked up, you know,
yeah.
whatever. If I lost that's 300 fish I lost.
Right.
That's stressful.
Yeah. And I mean, so
I had commitments.
I was like, say you piss off your buyer and they're like, well, now you can't provide consistently and I can't rely on you, so I don't want anything else from you.
And that's where you got to be upfront and, you know, and respectful for the people that are selling your fish, basically. You know, you got to be professional and you got to be upfront. If you do make a mistake where you lose a batch of fry or whatever, you know, you got to be right up front. Hey, man, I lost a batch of fry. Yeah, you know, it's going to be another 6 weeks before I can, you know, whatever.
Yeah. Oh, man, I stepped away for a second just reading through chat crap.
I don't know. All I do know is I thought this was a really good conversation. I hope somebody in chat learned something. Number one, when you go into an auction, you don't get that money. You get 70-30 at best.
If you're lucky. I mean, a
Yeah,
lot of
70-30 at
50.
best. So if your bag goes for $1, you're getting 70 cents.
And it's I mean, we talked about people getting into breeding fish for profit. That's kind of where we got into this auction stuff. A lot of people want to get into breeding fish, and that's great, but plan on some sort of outlet, like have a plan in place as to how you're going to move fish, because there's a lot of people like, well, my convict spawned, I have 200 babies.
Exactly, but you can't get rid of
now
them.
what? Your local, I promise, your local fish shop doesn't want 200
I'll be right back.
dime-sized convicts. Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, have some sort of outlet, whether it's a local club or whether you're going to ship or something. Because I mean, otherwise you're going to get stuck sitting on a bunch of fish that are just taking up space. And if you're trying to breed for profit, fish that are taking up space are taking up time and money, because you're feeding those things, you're doing water changes, it's taking up your effort, and you're not getting anything out of it. That's awesome, Patrick. And 135 miles, that's not a bad drive. I mean, back then it was probably a little bit of a drive. Um, but that's not a bad drive to go 135 miles. If you have a relationship like that, if you can make a relationship like that where he gives you a call, and you have those connections, that's awesome. I feel like these days it's hard to find a local shop to build that conversation with, because the obviously it's nice for them to deal with somebody in person, but a lot of the times it's a little bit easier for them to go to a wholesaler where they can get more stuff all in one place. Import lists from South America, Europe, and Asia. Imports are, they have the potential to really work out great for you. I personally, I've imported plants myself. I wouldn't do that again myself. Um, if I was going to import things, I would go through somebody else and put the responsibility on them. Like I said, I've seen a lot of friends import plants, and they turned into a bust. And they would through somebody else, you're having a shop import it for you, whatever. They're kind of
Well, you have to go through a transshipper.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
No, like I would have a shop import something for me. If it was a rare thing I want to import it, I wouldn't want to import it myself, just because you know what, then you're just out whatever. I mean, generally speaking, if a shop's working with import lists like Alishan mentioned, then they have some sort of relationship with somebody, and the person on the other end is kind of on the hook for something. Like if it's just an individual trying to work out an import, I mean, it's anybody's guess as to how well they are or aren't going to treat you for it.
Right. Oh, it's just like Dan's fish. Dan's, I don't necessarily know how he does it, but he's brought relationships to other exporters in other countries. And I think it's more, he has language skills that, most of us don't have.
Oh, he's a people person, man.
And I think that's why he's been able to do what he's doing, but he's a direct importer. Whereas I don't know if I'd want to be a direct importer, because you can wind up in a lot of trouble if you're not careful.
Oh yeah. And I actually saw somebody the other day. somebody was looking for some plants, and they said they were willing to ship plants from the U.S. to Canada. I was like, okay.
Oh God, man,
you do involve.
that's even worse.
I was like, you do know that involves somebody, you know, getting a phyto cert here. I was like, if you're gonna ship them without and just put it on the buyer, like your buyer might be in for a rude awakening.
No, dude, I'm sitting in Minnesota. I'm gonna get in my bass boat. I'm gonna take my plants and I'm gonna ship them right over to you.
Right. I'll be right there.
Right through Lake of the Woods, man.
Yeah. Dragon City. So he was working at his local shop. That kind of hooked him up on some rare stuff. He said he was breeding angels and mbuna. So
I'm telling you, back in the 70s and early 80s, if you did angels and mbuna, you were golden.
you were in the money, man.
But here's the thing, man. You got to be honestly. Who made that comment?
Dragon Lair. Patrick was talking about
Dragon Lair. You got to admit, man, yellow Libidiochromis, the quality has declined like you wouldn't believe. I don't know what happened to them, but the melanin, the black on the dorsal and the black on the anal fin has just like decreased like crazy. What they call now, yellow Libidiochromis wasn't what we call the yellow Libidiochromis back in the 80s. It just depresses me, man. It's like we had these great fish and then we ruined them.
Yeah, it's a shame, and that goes back to if you're going to breed fish, be responsible about it, and start with healthy stock to begin with. Set yourself up for success. Spend the money, get some healthy stock, and then maintain a healthy strain.
Which isn't exactly super easy. Everybody thinks, well, I can just buy this fish and it's going to come out perfect later. But it's not necessarily always the case.
Oh, yeah.
Especially in guppies, because we were talking about guppies earlier. Just because you buy a trio of guppies and you maintain them together and you just keep taking out the males doesn't mean you're going to maintain that strain.
Oh, right.
There's a whole hell of a lot more into it, man, and a whole hell of a lot more work to maintain that strain than what people are, I think, generally willing to give.
Yeah. So Patrick said redfish blue. We were talking about imports. He said Jason's important for direct from Europe. I see a lot of people, in the past year or two, imports out of the Czech Republic have been a lot more common.
I think so too. Man, they're coming up with fish but see, they don't necessarily belong to the CITES agreement. So,
okay. Yep.
I don't know exactly where those fish are coming from, and I don't want to accuse anybody of anything, but most of the things coming out of Eastern Europe, they don't abide by the CITES treaty.
Okay. And now I'm not super familiar with it. I'm somewhat familiar, but can you just kind of hit some of the details on the CITES treaty?
The CITES treaties, just the CITES thing is just what's on the endangered species list and where it is, where it is. Then each individual country has its own laws. Where here in the United States, we have the Lacey Act, where the Lacey Act says that the United States will not engage in any trade of endangered species whatsoever, is basically what it says. And each country has their own individual law. Well, where our law says that if it's endangered on the CITES list or then we cannot import it whatsoever. No questions asked. That's it.
Okay.
Where the Canada law is a little different. So Canada is allowed to have some species on the CITES list as long as they have the correct paperwork to document them. That's why they can have the red Asian arowana, where in the United States we can't.
Right.
Because
Okay.
the Lacey Act said 100%, no way, if it's an endangered species, we cannot import it. That's it.
Yeah. So interesting stuff. A lot of stuff that maybe people don't necessarily know that's going on, or what it takes to get fish stateside.
The Lacey Act, by the way, is a lot more than fish. I mean, the Lacey Act put the whole import of parrots, miscellaneous mammals. Yeah, it just the Lacey Act was a blanket. If it's endangered, it's not allowed.
Okay. Now, Patrick said the fish are not allowed in by customs if they are endangered.
Right, because of the Lacey Act.
Okay. So, I mean, are a lot of these imports from like the Czech Republic or Eastern Europe that aren't necessarily following this stuff, or are they getting turned around?
Yeah,
or
because
seized?
other countries they don't have the Lacey Act, so they can do whatever they want. That's the whole reason that Canada can have Asian arowanas.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go on it because I'm not an expert, but yes, it's an output for rare stuff that can't get through other channels.
Roundhouse said, "Buy your stuff from Colombian drug runners." Well, they've figured out how to get other stuff in the country, so I bet they could squeak you by.
There was a guy, honest to God, in Indiana 3 weeks ago. Honest to God, 3 weeks ago, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife caught the guy. He tried to ship out 263, or it was either 263 or 236 freaking box turtles to Asia.
I think I remember that getting caught.
He had them all wrapped. He had all their feet taped up, and he had them wrapped up in socks. And it's like, dude.
Now I've heard speaking of shipping stuff crazy like that. I've heard stories. I've never known for like matter of fact, but I've heard that they used to ship fish just like wrapped up in like damp paper towels, like Placosmus and stuff. I don't know how accurate it is, but they're just like random stories from like older folks that
Yeah, I know.
They'd ship stuff like that. I'm like,
I've heard the same stories.
I don't know.
And again, I don't know how true it is, but
yeah.
I don't know, man. Desperate people do desperate things. I don't know.
Patrick said he made $500 a month selling fish. Now, $500 a month selling fish in the 70s. I mean, I wasn't around, obviously, but that seems like it'd be pretty decent money.
Actually, we did good. Dragon Lair is actually very accurate. I made a crap ton of money selling African cichlids.
Yeah.
I mean, a crap ton of money. Then the market got saturated when it became cheaper. Once the Florida fish farms got a hold of them, and the price dropped so much to the point where I couldn't feed them for the price that the farms were selling them for.
Right. Yeah.
Then the market saturated, and it was unfortunate because I'm not gonna say every fish farm is bad, but they really didn't care what was breeding with what. They really didn't. And the strains were still like let's take the yellow lab for instance.
Okay.
The yellow Labidiochromis you're gonna get now, you'll be lucky if it's got melanin on its dorsal fin and anal fin. You'll be lucky to find one like that. Whereas when we were breeding them, they all had it.
Okay.
It's just there's some other Mbuna that got mixed in, and yeah, the yellow Labidiochromis you saw in the 70s and 80s looked a hell of a lot better than what the ones you're seeing now.
And
I'm just saying they were just way cooler fish.
It's unfortunate that that's how it's going. And I know, like, if you're into rainbows much, like Gary Lang has, bred a wide variety of rainbow fish, obviously, but he's also distributed those to some of the farms to try to spread those fish throughout the hobby. So I'm curious to see how well, I don't know what farms he gave them to, or what the deal was exactly.
See,
but
that's what I love, man. When a breeder is like, dude, I'm just willing to spread these out to you guys.
Oh yeah, that's passion for the hobby. I just hope the farms take care of the fish and don't end up hybridizing them, because you're starting to see that. You saw that with the Africans, like the peacocks and the Mbuna, where they got into the hobby, they got real popular, and there's hybrids running rampant, and now rainbow fish are kind of people are starting to figure out that they may hybridize, and um, so I'm curious to see how well the farms hold up, and
They
I'm
don't
not
care.
saying
The farms are about
no,
profit, man.
right, and I'm not saying hybridization is the end of the world. But there's a lot of people out there that are selling fish that they don't know if they're pure or not. So, or
And that's one of the things that kind of irritate me just a little bit. Like if you go to Walmart or Petco or whatever, to the same fish shop I went to, the dither fish I just bought just right now, and they have resemblances to actual pure strains. So because they sort of look like a pure strain, then you're gonna sell them as a pure strain. Except you can't. You bought them out of a mixed African tank. They're mixed Africans, and then you don't even know. 90% of them are all male anyways, so then you have to buy females. And do you know that you have the right females to that right male? Yeah, it just freaking irritates me beyond belief. You're gonna pay extra if you want a pure strain.
oh yeah,
Anything other than that, you just have to sell them as mutts,
right.
because that's what they are. They're mutts.
And I don't know. That's we're getting back into breeding ethics.
Yeah, and I'm sorry I even
And
brought
no,
it up.
that's fine. Like, I
It's
think it's
just
an important topic to talk about. And it's one thing that, I mean, obviously I like to breed. I don't mass produce fish or anything, but breeding ethically and keeping. I'm not a purist, so don't think I'm uppity and like that. But I do think we need to maintain integrity in fish.
Yeah, integrity in the strain is absolutely necessary. And you can't call something if you don't, if you honestly can't document where it came from, then you can't call it what it is.
Right. And it's like, I mean, people get caught up in the hype of wild caught fish. And I don't know how many of you can prove that that's wild. Like, how many actual wild caught fish are in the hobby anymore? Like when it comes to breeding stock,
yeah, you're exactly right. People will be surprised that a lot of your fish are not wild caught. They're produced in a farm in Florida, usually with hormones, depending on, what kind of species it is. Especially the barbs.
And Jesse asked a question. I don't know why Jesse just doesn't get on the stream like he used to. But he said, how about the difference between a pure wild line versus a line bred pure strain bred for aesthetic reasons? What are your opinions?
Man, that's a loaded question, ain't it?
Example, take a pure wild Basmani rainbow and line breed them to look super awesome. Is that wrong or no?
I think that's fine. If you
Is it?
start off with a pure strain and you line breed it to just be awesome, then yeah, you took a pure strain. So the strain is still pure. You just
Right.
took it to make it look awesome.
You cleaned it up. I mean, you took a wild fish and you cleaned it up to bring out whatever traits you want out of it. And a lot of the times, unfortunately, I'm not as into fish genetics as I'd like to be, simply just not having a ton of time, I suppose, and too many hobbies and chasing the kid around and work and whatever. But
If you keep back crossing to that one massive, awesome, bright looking Bozeman, and you wind up with a bunch of fry that once they grow up 2 years freaking later, and they turn out to be the most brightest, Bozeman you ever saw, it's still a
Right.
pure strain.
Right, it's a Bosemani.
Yeah, you just back crossed it a bit. That's all.
It's just like, and you can see that in Plecostomus. Like, there's certain lines of Plecostomus where that's, it's still a pure fish. It's just been, back crossed and line bred enough to bring out like a more white coloration and stripes or whatever. Like if you look at the 236s or and Alishan mentioned Rosario Lacourt, so line breed and Bosemani. It's still, you're not hybridizing. And
Yeah,
that's
you're
where
not hybridizing anything. You're just line breeding.
hybrids are where I have, a beef, I guess.
Yeah, I also have the same beef. If you can't keep the strain pure, then I don't have time for you.
Yeah. And Lunatic said very little is being bred in Florida in comparison to the amount of fish that are now bred in Asia. Yeah, I don't trust, and you can tell, like if you look at like a quality German blue ram versus an Asian German blue ram, like
Yeah,
the
you know the
body
difference.
the
You
body
can
shapes
see
are
it.
completely jacked, let alone the color. It's insane. So I don't know. Yeah, the Asian farms, they don't care, which is surprising because all the quality shrimp come out of Asia, but the fish are terrible.
Well, first of all, you got to look at Asia for what it is. Asia has been trying to come up with the next best thing. They were the first ones to come up with tattooing fish. They were the first ones to cut off the caudal peduncle of a fish. They really don't care about the fish itself. They just want the money.
At all. Zero cares. Not even a little bit.
I mean, seriously, when you get to the point where you're cutting off part of the fish so it looks cooler, that's pretty screwed up.
I mean, who has the time for that? other than S said not all of Asia is bad. Well, you're not wrong.
And I'm sorry, I'm probably going to lose subscribers for it, but I think the parrot cichlid is an abomination. I really do. I don't like it. There's nothing I like about it. I mean, the doggone fish can't even close its own mouth.
No. And those hybrids, I'm not a fan. I don't like the parrots. I don't like, give me grief if you want. There's a huge following, but I can't stand flower horns.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
I mean, if that's your thing, have at it.
yeah, agreed. I'm not
going to own
gonna
one,
hold
ever.
the person, physically responsible for having it. I mean, because they didn't know. They didn't know how the fish was created and the whole thing. But yeah, for me, it's just not me.
Or what? Let's see if I can. Or these this is a recent thing that's kind of come up in the past year or so, is this guy. And it's, again, not a fan, even a little bit. But I mean,
Well, I don't like convicts in general, but
well, you don't like convicts, you don't like parrots. Let's take them and put them together.
right. I mean, yeah, I get it. And there's a whole bunch of people that have fish like this. And I got to admit that it's a cute looking little fish, except his body is compressed. His organs probably ain't doing all that great.
Right.
And he's nowhere near natural. And yeah, it's just not my thing.
And it's like, I mean, you look at, like the short bodied, if as soon as you say short body or balloon ram, you lose me on
absolute balloon anything. I can't I don't get it, man.
What?
I don't understand why everybody thinks it's so popular, because every organ in that fish is so compressed.
Oh, they're terrible.
The balloon mollies, there's balloon everything. It's like, really? That was a cull and a fish that wouldn't have lived very long. And chances are it's not going to live very long for you either, because every organ in that fish is so compressed.
Oh, it's, I don't know. Is this the, oops. I wonder, is this the article you're talking about, Alisham?
But then again, Roundhouse brings up a good point, but I do love my guppies, and I do love but we're not compressing their organs.
Right.
There's a huge difference. I'm a guppy snob, and I'll show you when I like a guppy. And I don't like every guppy that comes down the pike. So
yeah, and I'd argue that you're maintaining for the most part, the integrity of the health
species
of the fish and the line. Like, it's still a species. You're not hybridizing it. Like, you could argue,
right.
You could argue between endlers and guppies. I'm like,
yeah, we've already beat that horse.
We're not
to
going to
death.
dig down in the weeds that far, but
yeah, I mean, the health of the fish in general. I mean, number one, the fish has to be healthy. That's number one priority.
Those are terrible. Woof. Yeah, I'm just not a fan. Not a fan.
HC Aqua, I think we've been over this in the past. I'm an IFGA guy. I'll always be an IFGA guy. I'll never be anything other than an IFGA guy.
Yeah, guppies have, reduced in size because of line breeding and whatnot, and whether that's, by design or a side effect of the breeding.
What do you mean reduced in size? They've grown in size. Some of the people breeding them have reduced them in size, but I mean, if you look at the actual wild guppy and look at the IFGAs, trust me, they've grown in size.
Patrick said endlers and guppies are a hybrid, whether you like it or not.
Yeah, that's kind of my point. When I first started streaming, that's one of my first bitches was, yeah, those endlers you got are not endlers.
Oh, no, the ones that I was showing you earlier, the Silverados and the Tigres and stuff.
Oh, no, it's got nothing to do against you at all. I just mean...
No, not at all.
I guarantee you there's guppy genetics in there somewhere.
Oh, for sure, with these ones, yeah.
It is so... people don't realize how rare it is to have an honest-to-God guppy-free endler strain. You honestly have to document your fish from a little mud puddle and say these fish are direct descendants of that. And I guarantee you 99.99% of the people can't do that.
Oh no, I'm sure not. It's like it anymore. I remember when, because of several years ago now, it's been a while, but like black bar endlers first hit the markets, mainstream. You started seeing them on Aquabit and stuff, and people would always post about them being N class, or they'd post like K class guppies and stuff, or K class endlers. And now I feel like you don't even see like any of that classification. I think that's just because you've lost all of that.
Right.
Not necessarily
It's all
heritage, but you
gone.
lost the lineage.
All of it's
behind it.
gone. That's my whole point with the argument. Even the N-class guppies aren't endlers. They're not the original species that was named endler. But anyways, I digress, and you're putting me in a. I could go on for that for hours.
No, it's good talk, and these are conversations that most hobbyists, unfortunately, probably don't care about.
Yeah, 99.9% of people watching don't care.
So I mean that's one of the, and call me a purist or elitist or whatever, but I mean I personally care about that stuff. Do I keep?
I wear man. I'm going to tell you right now. I wear that badge with an honor. When I say I'm a guppy prude, I'm a guppy prude. You're either going to accept it or you're not. And when I'm a cichlid prude, I wear it with a badge of honor. These new cichlids I got. People oohed and ahhed over the colors, but they're freaking mutts. I'm not going to tell you one is a certain species just certainly because it looks like a picture on the internet. They're freaking mutts. That's what they are. I'll never spawn them. I have absolutely no intention of spawning them. They're freaking mutts. I knew what they were when I bought them, and I'm using them as dithers. That's it. They're just expensive dithers.
I mean, that's
for a species that I actually do want to breed, that I actually might, say what they are. And, I don't know. I kind of forgot where I was going with this, but, yeah. I'm a prude any way, shape, or form. I mean, I want to talk about every species as true as possible. And if I'm going to breed them, I'm going to breed them as true as possible.
And I think, some people will like look at prices of fish like, well, why is this fish so much more than that fish? They look like they could be the same. Like, well, you have more or less a known lineage behind one of them. You're paying for clean bloodlines. You're paying for the background of this fish.
Exactly.
And it's not just some fish out of the assorted African cichlid tank at your freaking Petco.
Right. Which I'm using as dithers right now. And I'm not exactly sure it's working. I think I'm going to have to get 5 more and put them in a bigger tank.
What size that you said they're in a 40 now?
Yeah, 40 breeder right at the moment.
I don't know. What's like adult size on those guys? Are they pretty close, or they got a ways?
Yeah, the male you're looking at is adult size.
Okay.
Well, now he's behind a rock, but
Alishan said Joe Ferdenzi of Greater City Aquarium Society of Queens has an original group. He said he only distributes them to people he trusts to keep pure.
Yeah, I'm telling you, if you honest to God have a true documented strain of endlers, you have no idea how much money that's actually worth.
Yeah,
because everybody on their planet says I have endlers. But unless you got actual freaking like AKC freaking paperwork to document where in the hell they came from, you don't have endlers.
Right.
That guy sounds like he has endlers. Honest to God, endlers. And they ain't cheap, people. You're going to pay a ton of money to have, honest to God, documented endlers.
I think that's something that killifish actually do really well. Is, I mean, partially based on necessity, is killifish guys tend to document everything particularly well. Well, I mean, which if you look at killie identification, it may be the same like two fish may be the same species, but they have it down to, and I'm not a killie nut.
But
so
they
just
document
roughly off the top of my head,
location, collection point,
which
and
collection trip it is, exactly where they picked it up, what the date was, all that stuff.
yeah.
So I mean, and that's something that killie guys do stuff right, and
there's a few killie guys that do it right, and I got a lot of crap when I first started coming online. I said, you know what you call a killie is not a killie. You know, I called a spade a spade. You know, it is what it is. If you, honest to God, have a documented line of honest to God endlers, those fish are not cheap. Those fish are extremely rare. And chances are, if you got a crap ton of them in your tank that you bought for $10, you ain't got endlers.
Patrick said Joe's endlers came from a group collected in Venezuela by Dr. Endler, so that would be
if he's got paperwork to document them, he honestly has endlers. He's probably the only person I know that I've ever seen on YouTube that actually has endlers.
That's impressive. I don't know and that's one thing I'm surprised. I bet if we had Alex would probably be pretty big into tracing.
The thing is, Alex agrees with me. We actually talked about it, but he won't just put it out there like I do.
I'd just be interested in. I mean, it'd be cool to be able to track a longer line of fish like that's been around for a little while from its collection through.
You can actually do it, and Alex would be the one to talk to. You can actually. There is paperwork that you can it's not like the AKC or anything, but you can honestly track the original endlers to who has them, because they were given to this person, and then they were given to that person, and then they were given to this person. You can trace that back.
Yeah.
You got to remember, you're talking about one fish that came from a very small body of water. So it's not that hard to trace the lineage back.
Mm-hmm.
If you had the paperwork to do so. I've never tried to say, okay, who was the second person to have endlers? I've never done that. I don't care. All I said was, chances are you don't have endlers.
Right.
That's all I said. And I gotta check on some things. I'll be right back.
Yeah. Yeah. So hopefully, I mean, I think we still got 22 people watching. I don't know if anybody else is streaming right now. But while Terry steps away, I hope everybody has been enjoying what we've been talking about, and at least maybe sparked some thoughts in your guys' heads, that maybe you didn't think about before, whether it comes to breeding fish or the lineage behind your fish and what might be some of the factors that you might consider. Okay, episode 81. I'm just looking up right now. Uh, Somebody mentioned, Patrick mentioned that Randy over the Aquarius podcast interviewed Joe, and he told a story, and that's boom. See if I can get this to focus. BB. Oh no, I lost you guys. Not gonna get it, I don't think. Anyway, episode 81 of the Aquarius podcast is Joe Fredenzi has a 28-year-old strain of Endler's libraries collected by Dr. Ender in Venezuela. I haven't listened to that one yet, but it is now on the to-do list because that stuff is pretty interesting to me, and it'd be interesting to hear Joe's story about that. Greg said, great stream. Glad you're enjoying it, Greg. Thanks for stopping by. I know we do have a few new faces tonight, and hopefully you guys have been appreciating everything. If you aren't subscribed over at Terry's Tropical Tanks, make sure you do so. And
Don't
if
even
you
bother.
aren't subscribed to All Things Fish here, I would definitely appreciate it. Terry over at Terry's Tropical Tanks is currently at 914. So he is just around the corner from hitting 1,000, which is a pretty big deal. So hopefully, in the next couple months, we can get you there, Terry.
Well, if I ever do it, I'm gonna do a nude stream, and we'll figure it out from there. But
yeah, seems like I said, we still have some people hanging out. I was just kind of chit-chatting for a minute when you stepped away. 3G said it's super interesting. Dee Dee said she enjoyed learning. It is above, what, a lot of stuff. I like to be prepared and come talk about stuff that I know a lot about. But there's a lot of nights like tonight where, talking about endlers or talking about important fish, there's a lot of stuff I don't know, and it's nice to learn from you guys.
Man, I don't either, man. I've been in this hobby for a while, but it just doesn't mean I know everything, and I've been proven wrong before. So by all means, whenever I'm talking, if I make a comment that ain't exactly quite right, please correct me.
Yeah, and that the same goes for me. Like the goal of this stream, obviously we enjoy a good laugh. I enjoy hanging out and talking, but the goal of the stream is to talk fish and to accurately talk fish and to be informational, and so that everybody walks away at the end of the night either thinking in their head critically about something, or they're actually they walk away feeling, I really learned this, I didn't know this, or you know what, I didn't think of paying more attention to this, I want to focus on this area better. So we're not gonna we generally speaking, we're not gonna have like the huge, like the 10-person panels where people are fighting to talk over each other. But streams like tonight where we touched on, it was nice. I haven't been streaming a lot lately, so it was nice to get back kind of to the roots where we have these long conversations, get into some serious subjects. And we've had a great group, whether it's Patrick, who it's way past his bedtime, I know that much. And now Chewy's in here, and Alishan is always a super good guy.
If you ever want to do any of these again, man, let me know.
Every Tuesday night, man. Every Tuesday night. So Jesse said it's been very thought-provoking, and I hope so. And whether it's something that I say or something that somebody else in the chat, whether it's Patrick or 3G or Roundhouse or maybe Dee Dee asks a question or something, I hope that you walk away wanting to learn more or being excited about something. Like either want you to learn or be inspired. And I hope that we're either the people on here are presenting accurate information. If you don't feel it's accurate, question it.
Yeah,
don't be afraid
exactly.
to call me out. Like I don't know. Am I good at keeping planet tanks? You bet. Like I'd like to think I'm good at least. And do I know everything, or am I doing everything perfectly right? No, not by a long shot. So if I say something, be like, hey, I think this is nonsense. Show me why you're doing this, or show me where you found this information, and I'll gladly
Exactly.
do what I can. And if you have something that shows otherwise, like if I say, plants need X, Y, and Z, and you have a research paper that's saying, no, plants need A, B, and C more. Let's talk about it. Let's get into that academic discussion. Well, let's talk about the science and the details behind it. And last week we kind of briefly touched on top of accountability and like holding everybody on. When you get on YouTube, you're talking to an audience. You're, whether you think about it or not, you are educating people. Like, people are going to listen to what you say. So whether you have 100 followers or 10,000 followers, they're going to listen to what you have to say, whether it's you or somebody on your channel. So make sure that you're sharing proper information. And guys like, it's the Chewies and Patricks and Alshans and Terrys and all the old folks, and even the young folks like Alex and the young guys that are super motivated and have that time and all that energy to do the learning right now. Keep us on our toes. Like,
Yeah,
we need,
it doesn't
as
matter how many subscribers you have. Give accurate information.
right, as hobbyists, we're only doing a disservice to ourselves and our community by allowing bad information and bad advice to be out there. And I don't care who's giving it. It could be, there's some really big names out there that give really bad advice, but because they're a big name, people give them credibility. And that's unfortunate. But
It
hopefully,
is. It's
the
very
whole goal,
unfortunate.
like literally the only reason that I started talking on YouTube is I'm like, well, Facebook's become a terrible platform. Like, if I can reach people and hopefully share proper information and inspire people and motivate people to want to learn more than just seeking answers is one thing. Like, don't get me wrong, like, use Google to no end. Like, seek answers, but seek information behind the answers. Like, the answer is not enough. Like, don't just seek the answer.
Yeah, why is
Find out
this?
why that's the answer. And
Right.
improve.
Why is this the answer?
Let's improve ourselves as hobbyists. Let's be intelligent about a subject and not having
and here's the thing that makes me hopeful with the hobby is because you do think like this, okay? And you're out here, your whole platform is that we're going to give accurate information about plants and fish. That's your like whole premise. That's what gives me hope about the future of the hobby, is because there's more people just like you that are going to do the exact same thing. Whereas there's some people that think it's a popularity contest, and that if you're not giving, it doesn't matter what information you give, just as long as you're popular, you're gonna run the hobby. And I'm going to tell you what, I honestly, truly think that people, as they evolve through their own hobby, because everybody's path through this hobby is different, but as they evolve through their own hobby, they will eventually come up with people like you, and they'll learn, truths, how the hobby actually is.
Oh yeah.
If that made any sense.
Yeah,
I don't know.
And like Casual said, like, question the answers and be open-minded. Like, be open-minded when you give an answer, be open-minded when you get an answer.
Exactly.
And think about, the reasons behind it. And Roundhouse just made a comment about reading books, and I gotta move something here quick.
Yeah, there's a ton of books I read.
But,
oh my God, you have no idea.
Just right next to me on the desk. I don't know. I'm sure some of you guys may have read this one.
I think I have, actually.
A little Casper and Horst action, or Casper, Horst, and Horst Kipper, sorry. But I just started reading this one per the suggestion of Karen Randall. And it's old. I mean, it's old, but it's it touches on the basics, and at least it gives you a starting point. It's
think about it. What has changed? What has
now.
changed in our hobby since 1970 to now?
I mean, we know more details, but I mean that the information from then is still accurate. Like
the only thing that has changed is we're able to ship live goods across the world and overnight. That's
right.
About the only thing that has changed.
And this was published in the 70s, and there's Dragon Layers Cockatoides on top there. yeah, I mean, anybody that asks me like for good starting books to read, this one's gonna be one of them from now on. It's the Optimum Aquarium. For those of you guys in the chat that haven't read it, it's by Horst and Kipper. If you're into planted tanks, I'll show you guys. This is currently
When it comes to fish, if we're gonna recommend books, can I recommend the Aqualog series?
yeah, definitely.
I recommend the Aqualog series, and they have a Aqualog for every type of fish out there. So
And then Lunatic Fringe mentioned Karen Randall. That's this guy here, and she actually signed that one for me.
oh, nice.
So
That's incredible.
So another good one there. What else I got laying around? I got mostly like Planet Tank stuff. I don't have it on this desk, but if you have the money, it's a little more expensive book. But Aquarium Plants by Crystal Castleman is a great option for plants themselves. As far as keeping fish, like somebody said, the Bange Atlas. Roundhouse mentioned the Bane Atlas. That's great stuff. It's all awesome. Definitely like go back to your, when in doubt, like go back to your roots. Don't trust all the books, but generally speaking, most books are edited and critiqued a little more than YouTube.
As long as they weren't
YouTube
put
videos.
out by a company, like don't trust the Tetra books or something. But if it had an individual author and they weren't put out by like Tetra, yeah, read those books.
Yeah, it's awesome. There's some books out there. I'm not going to mention any names that were self-published that contain some poor techniques and some misinformation. And some of the people that have watched my stream before kind of know, who I may or may not be referring to right now, and that's fine. Just it's not bad to read those books. Just be able to have the understanding and skill set and broad horizons to recognize what information might be bad in those books. Roundhouse said, "You just got the freshwater aquarium starter VHS."
I'd love to watch it, man.
Oh man.
I actually had a VHS of Paul Loisel. I lost it in my move somewhere.
Oh, bummer.
But yeah, I had a VHS of Paul Loisel talking about cichlids and what cichlids were, and I wish I still had it.
Yeah, and Lunatic pointed out it made a very valid point. Some of the taxonomy and the classification has changed over time, both with fish and plants. But generally speaking, the information may have some tweaks here and there, but I would say that the concepts are the same. And
Absolutely. Just because they took a fish and said, well, this was a haplochromis whatever, but now we're going to call it nanochromis whatever, that doesn't change. The basic ability to keep that fish hasn't changed. All that changed was its name.
Oh yeah, and I mean, even from 5 years from now, they're going to reclass a bunch of stuff. Like a bunch of the plants, I still use old plant names because plants have been reclassified since I got into plants 15 years ago. So I mean, it's the focus. I would say focus on the concepts and learn the details.
Exactly. Focus on the concepts, not the, don't be fooled by what's ever in front of your face. Look at the broad picture and figure it out from there.
So, and like Lunatic said again, concepts the same, but the science of DNA has come into light, and that's how it's going to be. The more specific we are, and the more the finer details that we can use to differentiate fish and plants, the more things are going to change over time as far as taxonomy goes.
Yeah, we're not done with name changing. We're not
But
done.
at the end of the day, taxonomy and classification doesn't change
How to keep the
fish.
fish.
We keep the fish the same. We breed the fish the same. The name may change like hell. So a bunch of like I don't know. They change names all the time, and it's not that big of a deal. Like you learn if you use a name that the classification changed on 5 years ago, odds are that everybody still knows what you're talking about.
Right. Exactly. 9
I
times out of 10, if there's a name change, it takes freaking 15 years before anybody realizes it anyways.
Oh yeah. Alshan said Doc Willisell presents at least one program a year at the New Jersey Aquarium Society. That'd be pretty awesome. And you know, with the ad, unfortunately, due to restrictions over the past year, with certain social events, which I mean, it was unfortunate that you couldn't attend as many things. But a lot of clubs were doing Zoom meetings where they'd bring in a presenter, like if you're a plant guy, Tom Barr was doing online presentations. If you were a woodcat guy, Jeremy Bash was doing presentations. If you were a guppy guy, I think somebody from
the Massey presentations were fantastic.
Yeah, there's just always Gary Lang did a talk, at least to talk. The Sacramento Aquarium Society was having talks. GCCA did a ton. I actually won some buckets of cobalt food from GCCA. So, so that was a good deal.
I
And
would
they
kind
were
of,
free.
I
They
would
were free.
honestly hope that these clubs, the individual clubs, say that this was incredible and they just keep it up.
Oh, and yeah, and I mean, if you think about it, you know, usually, you know, traditionally, it's like if a club wanted to bring a speaker in, like if I wanted Rusty Wessel to come talk, I'd pay for his travel, so that includes a plane ticket or a car ride, whichever they decide they
Yeah,
want to do. Some
depending on
food,
how far away.
lodging, and then just generally you pay them for their time or whatever their speaker fee is. And with a Zoom meeting, they don't have to travel, they don't have to eat.
Yeah,
No,
all they got to do is talk.
you don't get to hang out with them in person, which is the majority of the fun. Like I sat and drank with Ted Judy and Joe Yaulo and
Oh, really?
all those guys at
Does
an
Ted
event.
like shots?
Ted's funny. I like Ted. So you don't get the privilege of sitting in person and hanging out with them, but for the cost, I mean, what's somebody going to charge you for an hour and a half of their time to talk on the computer? Like,
Right.
so it's amazing. It's incredible, and it's super beneficial for the hobby itself.
I don't know, though. I would pay to do shots with Ted Judy, though.
Oh, I have.
I really would.
Somewhere I've got some pictures of us drinking together. Yeah, a lot of speakers that are recognized in Europe. I don't know a lot of the European speakers myself. Like I see what I can find on YouTube. I'm not in those clubs, so I don't necessarily see when they get to talk. Fortunately, Dragon Lair Patrick clues me in on a lot of the stuff. He follows a lot of clubs pretty closely and gets the most recent news on when somebody's talking. So Patrick shuffles me some links here and there, and it's been a pleasure getting to listen in on a lot of those things. So, but you're right, we don't get the international stuff, which is unfortunate. But ACS
Man,
American.
I guess I'm. You know what? You're way more into it than I am, because I don't even bother. It's like I'm down here in my basement and I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do, and that's about it.
So I mean, it's I just think it's super interesting to learn. And I mean, so I'm 31 now. I got into tanks about 15 years ago. I wish I had, and I'm starting to rekindle the spark a little bit, but I wish I had the motivation and the desire to learn that I did when I first got into tanks. Because I feel like my skill set would expand much more rapidly, and I'd have much better stuff going on. But you know, life.
You know
life-
what though? 90% of fish keepers are their own worst critics.
No, I imagine.
Just so you know, you know what you got going on ain't all that bad.
Yeah. So, and I hope to improve. With help from all you guys, whether it's these late night chats, where it's a few of us sitting here, talking nonsense. What do we have? Like, oh, I think there's 20 people watching, and we have maybe 10 of us actively chatting together.
I'm gonna tell you what, the people you got that are actively chatting are very good fish keepers.
And that's the thing. Like I don't
And
get
that's what I like. I would just assume have if we only had 10 people, but they were 10 very good fish keepers.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
Yeah,
No doubt.
I'm cool with that.
I obviously, like, if anybody has a question, no matter what skill level you think it is or isn't, I'd be happy to at least try to help you out or try to find somebody else to help you out. But when you see a lot of these, and we're going back to these large channels that have a ton of influence, maybe not such great content. You get 1,000 people in a stream, and they're asking the same questions: Is my guppy pregnant? How do I fix it? I was
Exactly.
like, if you want to ask that question here, feel free. I'm not trying to shut anybody down, but when we get these discussions about we're getting into genetics and the history of certain lineages of fish and how to get into the specifics of doing something, I think it's a live stream, so we can have that discussion, and then I post them all, like I upload them all, so that everybody else can see what we talked about, and hopefully they can learn whether they're at that level, above that level, below that level, that
Except
it's
nobody
there for them to
cares.
use.
Nobody cares.
And
First
that's
of all, YouTube doesn't care.
no,
24 hours after your live stream, YouTube doesn't care that it even happened.
no, not at all. Which is unfortunate. But
That's why you got to turn it into edited content and put it as actual edited content, because YouTube doesn't care. You put a live stream. That's why I delete my live streams, because they're absolutely useless 24 hours after I made it. They're useless. They just occupy my channel and they don't do nothing.
okay.
Where my edited content, it constantly gets views, and it just constantly over and over and over. Unless you're really good at metadata and getting to once you make your live stream, then you have to give it a really clever name. Then you have to put all the metadata in, that everything we talked about, and then you got to get people to watch it. And chances are it's not.
Oh yeah, and I've noticed that. I mean, obviously, I'm a small time channel, but I've even noticed, like, generally speaking, the content I've made just as videos, not live streams, in the first 3 days, it does most of its work and gets most of its views, and then after that,
it's done.
You know what? People see
But
it.
I guarantee you, if you made a video titled Fish Genetics, a talk about fish genetics, and made it an honest to God edited content, where you got, a bunch of us together and we talked fish genetics, and then you uploaded it as honest to God, a talk about fish genetics, it'll get a slow start. Okay. It'll get a really slow start, but over time it'll grow and grow and grow, because it's edited content, and that's just kind of the way it works. And people want to know what in the hell we're talking about when we talk about fish genetics.
Right. And I think Lunatic pointed out a pretty interesting point here, and I agree completely. There's stream followers and content followers.
They're
the
entirely different.
Most streams, even if you stream once a week, 90% of your stream content is probably exactly the same.
Yeah.
Like nothing. Like I don't watch people's. Like I'll tune in to like. So earlier today, like the past couple days, I've jumped in when you stream and we'll chat. We'll talk about fish and stuff. Or like Dan's fish. Generally speaking, I like Dan's fish.
I love dance.
His stream. And then, but there's other content there's other guys out there that I don't watch their live streams because it's just a disaster. But if they post content about a specific topic, I'll gladly watch that content.
Yeah.
So it's just, it's interesting. Deborah said that this is the third or fourth stream of yours that she sat in on. Each time she walks away with some knowledge I didn't even know I needed. And that's awesome. That's incredible. That's great.
That's what I hope. Honest to God, every time I make a live stream, I hope somebody walks away with that same attitude.
Yeah. And initially when I started these streams, I've only done, this is number 11 or 12, I think. Initially I was like, okay, well, I'm only going to have, certain people up on the stream to talk to.
And you let me on here?
Well, but
I feel honored.
I've kind of realized, like, over time, like, if you just have the same two faces sit and talk at you all the time, you're only going to get 2 points of view, even if you have 3 people over and over again. So I try to mix it up and try to invite certain people up to talk about different topics, and I think it's a little more engaging. Like if we could, like if Deborah wanted to jump up tonight and ask her questions or just sit and listen or whatever, that's more than welcome to. And that goes to all of you guys. Now I say that I just don't want it to turn into the social hour. Okay. There are streams dedicated to simply being social. Like this stream
a lot of my streams turn into that.
This stream itself is, I dedicate mine towards information, and I feel like we'll go until we hit the point. So like we'll stream, if we stream for an hour and we hit a point where people just want to talk, I'm like, hey, you know what? I'll be like, Terry, why don't you fire up a stream? We'll go over there, and we'll do that over there. If we go for 3 hours like we are tonight, and we're still talking about hardcore, like pretty intense fish talk, I'm like, hey, I'll let it go all night. Like
I'll talk about I'll talk about intense fish talk all you want. All you got to do is keep the questions coming.
Yeah. So
that's one of the reasons. Like I like 503. She's up here. There she is. 503 came on one of my streams, and I was just struggling by myself, and she came up and she just asked the most incredible questions.
Oh, and that's what drives this stream most of the time.
She asked the best questions ever, and she wound up making me sound smart just because she asked really good questions. And you know what I mean?
Yeah, and that's what makes the stream great is the like you and I can sit up here and if depending on the topic, like you and I could probably go back and forth for an hour and a half
about this crap forever.
But people in the chat, if they're not asking questions about it, then that means they probably don't care.
Right.
Exactly. So they're not interested. So
I've said it time and time again. I can bore an audience to death. And
ask Patty how she feels about me talking about plants.
I wish I was better at plants. I really do.
That once you kind of figure out the concepts, and I mean, it's kind of like breeding most fish. Once you figure out, the basics, the rest of it just falls into place.
Well, I spent 20 years with African cichlids, so plants weren't my go-to. You know what I mean? Yep. And then I was like, well, I did my guppies, but I always just did the typical guppy plants. Your Hygrophila deformis, your guppy grass, your occasional sword plant, stuff like that. I never got into a lot of the stem plants or the root plants or anything like that, just because I wasn't breeding them,
Right. Yeah. I mean,
my whole goal was not plants, it was fish.
Yeah. And I try to, there's a few people on YouTube that really know their stuff about plants. And I'm not saying I'm one of them. I know some things about plants, but they don't generally usually get into the streams much. They may stream on their own, but they don't get into the streams where there's actual discussion back and forth. So I try to at least find some time here and there when people mention plants, like, oh, hey, I'll jump on for 10, 15 minutes and talk about plants a little bit and see if, anybody has any questions that I might be able to help out with.
My best, the people that taught me how to keep fish do not know what in the hell YouTube is.
No,
They don't even give a crap about the internet. But you go to their house and they're running the most awesome fish room you ever seen in your entire life. And you're like, dude, you should show this. And they're like, yeah, I don't know.
That's the thing. They'd rather work on their fish room. They'd rather work and do productive things and make videos,
Yeah.
And
they couldn't give a crap less that, dude, I could make you a YouTube star. And they're like, yeah, I don't.
Not interested. Not worried about it.
Don't care. I got Angelfish to take care of, man. Leave me alone.
And that's why, when I've been busy, like the past month or so, I was a little bit busy between work and the kid and stuff. I'm like, well, I have a couple hours. Do I work on the fish room? Or do I go sit on YouTube and talk to people, or do I make a video? I'm like, I can get way more done in 2 hours without stopping every 5 minutes to make a video. So I'm trying to find the balance there between being productive and still being able to provide somewhat informational content.
I just do it honestly. I swear to God, given my life circumstances the way they are right now, I just do it to have an outlet to talk to people.
Yeah, and that's great. That's awesome.
That's it. So, I get to talk to like-minded people, and I like talking to like-minded people.
Yeah, it's a great time. So, but on that note, we've been running for 3 hours. It is currently...
Wow, that went for 3 freaking hours?
Yeah, it's currently 12:09.
Dude, and you know what? We went for 3 freaking hours, and we actually talked fish.
Yeah, that
thing. Was it.
And we talked. I feel like we made good conversation about it, and it was hopefully, I know, even if, so we had, I think at most maybe we had like 20 people watching at a time.
Normally 20 minutes into one of my live streams, we're not talking about fish anymore.
So we had maybe like 25 or 30 people watching at any one time.
I think this was a great stream.
But I think if one person came out of it, like Deborah or Jesse, and said, hey, I was inspired, or you provoked some thoughts in my brain, then it was a success. So thanks a ton, Terry. Thanks for coming up and chatting with us. Lunatic Fringe, Patrick,
anytime.
Roundhouse, 503, Bruiser, 3G, Deborah, Casual, everybody that stopped in. Fish Tropic.
I can't believe that went 3 hours for real.
So,
dude, you got to come up on one of my streams sometime.
Yeah, you pick a day. I'm usually, so right now I'm free on Thursday nights. The weekends I try to stay busy, with hobbies and stuff. But Thursday nights I'm usually, Tuesday, Thursdays are a good time for me right now. So,
all right, I got to get back. I got to catch up with you. All right. Yeah. Dude, this was a great talk, man. Fun. I loved it. I don't know if it did great for your channel or your subscribers or anything, but I thought it was a great freaking conversation.
Yeah, no, it was a good chat, and like you said, it's just about hanging out, talking to like-minded people, and hopefully inspiring some people and helping people. So again, thanks a ton. We'll do it again soon. Everybody that's here, thanks. If you're hanging out and not chatting, still appreciate you being around. Hopefully you learned something. And if you're catching this on the replay and you made it through 3 hours,
you win an award.
It was kind of an intense 3 hours. So if you made it through 3 hours, congratulations, you get a gold star. And have a good night, everybody.